Welcome to the WBC Council meeting on Thursday, 18th of March 2021. I have a few preparatory comments to make first. This is the last council meeting of this municipal year, and I would ask all members to be respectful of the Code of Conduct rules of attending such a meeting, and in my role as mayor and accepting that the rulings I make. As you'll have seen, we have a packed agenda this evening, and I'd like to get through as much of it as possible in terms of the business that we have to conduct. I would therefore be grateful if members would be succinct when speaking about things, not too much preamble, just get to the questions and the facts, and also not too many people repeating anything that's already been said. I would also ask the members, do not interrupt anyone else whilst they're speaking, as this is not only disrespectful to that member and to your fellow councillors, but it's also very confusing for members of the public who are viewing it, and they don't recognise individuals' voices. They just hear cross-chatting, which sounds like a noise. If this happens too much, I will mute the relevant person's microphone to try and minimise the impact of that. And now the stuff that I normally say as well at the beginning of these meetings is to please ensure that any mobile devices or mobile phones or anything that makes a noise is switched off. If you are not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones, and for the sake of improved broadband usage and so on, also take the video off. So you put on the voice and camera when you're speaking, but you leave them mute otherwise. And to assist people viewing the meeting, do that, turn on when you're speaking, and try and speak as clearly as you can, and wherever possible, introduce yourself by name as well, your position. And to ensure the smooth running of the meeting in terms of when people want to speak and in what order, can you use the hands up facility, which is on the top row of the screen? There'll be a little hand symbol there. If you click that, the hand goes up in yellow alongside your name on the side of the screen, and I can see that you need my attention or you want to speak. It also serves to indicate which order people click the hands up, and you get asked to speak in the order that they appear on there. So if you could use that hands up facility, that would be, wherever possible, that'd be good. But obviously then don't start speaking until I ask you to speak. And when you have finished speaking, can you take the hand down? Otherwise we think you want to speak again. And just finally note that the meeting is currently being webcast live right now. So with that, we move on to the start of the formal meeting, and agenda item 98 is apologies. Does anyone have any apologies for absence?
We have one apology, Mr. Mayor, and that's Oliver Whittle.
Councillor Whittle, thank you very much. Is everyone? Yep. Okay, we move on to agenda item 99, which is the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any amendments to the minutes to note, please? We generally prefer you to have notified us in advance if you want to do that, but can you tell us if you have any amendments to the meetings? No one's speaking, no one's putting their hands up. No, no one's got any amendments. Fine, then I will assume that that is acceptable as it is. We then move on. Can people actually, when they're not speaking, can you turn your cameras off, please? That makes it easier. We get more photos of people, not photos, images of people on the screen, and we get a better throughput. Thank you. And if you also would like to mute yourself, it's even better. Item 100, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declaration of interests to make?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's Emma Hobbs here. I'm a trustee of the Wokingham Citizens Advice.
Right. Any more?
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Kaiser here. I am a director of Wokingham Holdings Limited.
And it's Councillor Maria G here. I'm also a trustee of Citizens Advice.
Okay, that's 3. Any more?
Lindsay Ferris, I am a non-executive director of Loddon Homes Limited.
Thank you.
John Halsall, I'm a director of Optimus.
Thank you.
Stuart Monroe, I'm a director of Woking Holdings also.
Thank you. Any more?
Malcolm Wayne Smith.
Wayne
Woking.
Smith.
Yeah, Holdings, WBC Holdings.
Okay. That's about half a dozen of you. Any more? No.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Daniel Sargent here. So I'm a director of Woking Housing Limited and Berrybrook Homes Limited.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I am a non-executive
You've disappeared.
of Loddon Homes.
Okay, you disappeared for a few seconds. The voice did anyway. But that's.
Okay, did you hear what I said?
Yes, I've got your declaration of interest, Councillor Clark.
Thanks.
Anyone else? No. Okay. Thank you for that. So now we move on to agenda item 101, Mayor's announcements. It's an interesting year. I mean, normally the Mayor has about 150 to 200 invitations and things to attend. This year, of course, most of those have disappeared because nobody is inviting someone to just appear on the screen. But nevertheless, I have had a number of such invites, and most of them are in fact virtual meetings, but I've had a number of actual ones as well. In recent couple of weeks, it's just been things like attending AGMs and so on. So that's in terms of the activity side. But I would like to mention to you that the Mayor's charity, Home First, we are arranging, or we have arranged through them, a competition. There is an art competition for children from 4 to 11, and that where they submitted paintings, drawings, all sorts of arty things, and those items we've had a good entry, and they are being evaluated and judged at the moment, and we will announce the results when we've deliberated. And immediately after that, during April, there will be a photographic competition. The same idea, it'll be in age groups, but it will include adults, and it'll be photographic competition with if you like, a junior section and an adult section, and they will come in April, and the results will be known by the end of April. So those are the charities. So that's the end of my Mayor's announcements. We now move on to item 102, which is the public question time. We have 30 minutes for this. It won't be extended. Supplementary questions are allowed if appropriate. Well, if you have some. So can I just remind you that the questions that you submit, please try and make them as concise as possible, not too much preamble on it to take up valuable time. So you get to the question, we'll get a better time then to get a decent answer and also more questions through. But if you have a supplementary question after the first part's been answered, that supplementary must relate either to the original question you asked or to the response that you've just received. Okay, so they should be prompt questions. The answers should also be equally prompt, and they should be no longer than 2 minutes, and all these things will be timed. Okay, if you attempt to go over by more than a couple of seconds, I will ask you to cut off promptly, immediately, at the end of the sentence that I would be interrupting. And if you carry on, I'm afraid I have no option but to mute you and then move on to the next question. So at that point, then, I would like to invite Jim Murphy to ask his question, please, of Parry Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you like me to read out the question, or do you take it as read as it is on the agenda?
It's your choice. If it's not a very long question, it's probably worthwhile reading.
Okay, well, the question is that I was horrified at the recent destruction of healthy, mature trees at Gravel Pit Hill Lane and the surrounding area. My understanding is that this was permitted under health and safety grounds related to the raised reservoir, which is claimed to be a Category A dam. I was unaware that the lake was categorised as such. There's some confusion over that still today. Yet, despite this categorisation, I cannot find any documentation showing this in the form of a functioning local resilience forum, which is a requirement that has publicly reported on population at risk, which is a requirement, and likely loss of life. Neither can I find any reservoir plan in the or specific reference to it in the borough's strategic flood risk assessment. Right. My question is, can you please confirm that these plans exist and advise how I can gain access to them?
Yes, Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Murphy, for your question. The Environment Agency are the statutory authority responsible for monitoring compliance in relation to reservoir safety and reservoir flood risk in England. Reservoirs capable of holding above 25,000 cubic metres of water are regulated under the Reservoirs Act of 1975. To perform its role in monitoring compliance, the Environment Agency maintains a register of regulated reservoirs and acts as a repository for various reports and certificates that are completed by the appointed reservoir engineers for each reservoir. The Environment Agency also holds reservoir flood inundation maps which show the route of flooding if a reservoir dam were to breach. These maps are publicly available by the Environmental Agency website.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I do, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. I actually intended to ask this question at the last executive, but unfortunately I was a couple of hours late submitting it past the deadline and it was precluded. And of course, since then, a lot more has come to light about this issue. And I accept that the Environment Agency has a role to play, but so does the local authority. And I'm convinced that, ironically, the justification to grant this emergency planning application that permitted the destruction of these mature trees, I mean, bear in mind some of these are 300-year-old oak trees, is in fact...
Can you get to the question, please?
Well, it's a consequence of some unacceptable previous failures to properly recognise, account and report the known risks of this reservoir, because I refer to the fact that this decision exposes and calls into question whether the planning applications for the Reading Football Club training ground and the houses there would have been granted if the known categorisation and resulting inundation risk of the reservoir had been properly accounted for.
Thank you. Can I cut you off there, please? Can I cut you off there, please? Because Councillor Barr needs to answer. It's not a monologue. It's meant to be a question. So.
Well, I'll get to the other question. I believe you need to undertake a full investigation of this, a transparent investigation. And my question is, will you do that?
I take your points of view, Mr. Murphy, but the safety and health and safety comes first. And Wokingham Borough Council, of course, does carry out its duty as per our procedures and we follow them to the letter, and I can assure you that we don't do anything underhand or anything like that. We follow the rules, and the health and safety comes first and on top of everything else. Thank you.
So why wasn't it part of the public?
Sorry, you've had your supplementary.
You haven't answered my question.
Well, you've had the time. You've had a supplement. I'm now moving on to the next question, please. Could Liz Myers ask her question of Councillor John Halsall, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, good evening. Mr. Halsall, on February the 18th, at the last full council meeting, you said the Wokingham Borough Council Equality Plan utilised the existing LGA framework. The Equality Framework for Local Government has been successfully implemented by other councils. Based on the EFLG process map and Wokingham Borough Council's self-analysis, what is Wokingham Borough Council's assessment of its current level, and what is the projected timeframe for attaining each of the subsequent levels, i.e. developing, achieving and excellent?
Thank you very much. May I call you Liz?
Yes, no.
Thank you very much for your question, Liz. The LGA framework is a useful tool for local government to use to identify areas of activity that need to be addressed to deliver good equality outcomes, and provides a framework for monitoring and measuring progress. We use the LGA equality framework for the basis of the equalities audit that was carried out through 2019-20. Whilst this did not provide an overall rating, it did identify areas for improvement. The required equality plan and first year action plan have been informed by the LGA framework and also through the stakeholder engagement and consultation. As set out in the plan, it is intended that we will carry out a self-assessment in Q4 of the first year plan period. This will provide us with a self-analysis rating. As I've shared before, my focus is to create the architecture within the council and the borough to make meaningful progress in tackling inequality. We know that everybody shares equally in the benefits of living here. We know that not everybody shares equally in the benefits of living here, and we are committed to tackling that issue. Inequality can be suffered for a whole range of reasons: age, gender, sexuality, race and disability, amongst others, but it is never acceptable. And I believe the draft plan we have is a comprehensive guide to tackling all of these. May I say as a footnote, how delighted I am that there is so much interest in the equalities policy tonight, with 5 questions. We're all on the same side. Diversity, equality, anti-racism and addressing need must be at the heart of everything we do and the example we set. No rational person would take any other point of view, and no responsible person would play politics with these issues.
Councillor Halsall, could you come to a prompt last sentence, please?
Yes, can I finish, Mr. Mayor? Every one of our residents must be able to lead the life that he or she wishes without fear from harm and without harming others. The equality policy we put in front of you today is the first step in this continuous journey in which every day we must strive to do better. There is no magic bullet. It is a continuous work on architecture, which I hope will be my legacy when I'm all but forgotten.
Thank you.
Last sentence.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, do you have a supplementary question at all?
I do, yes, I do.
As brief as possible.
Mr. Halsall, despite your encouragement and the claims of progress and intention around equality, it's widely recognised through my engagement and others with the council, from the CEO down, that there have been massive failures, including disability, gender and racial discrimination, evidenced by recent tribunals, complaints, your pay gap reporting, all which need to be addressed with meaningful action, not just some more comforting words. So what budget and resources are you committing to create some competent activity, not just another tick box exercise, which is actually going to improve equality in the borough?
It's certainly not a tick box exercise, Liz, certainly not. The equalities engagement has to be across the whole borough.
Mm-hmm.
We have a budget of some £150 million in the general fund, and we spend some £600 million. So all of that is committed to the equalities policy. It is not singled out as something which is separate. And however, the more engagement that we have as a council,
one could argue, needs to be singled out. A project of this magnitude with such failings needs to be singled out, and it needs to be identified.
Thank you, Ms. Byers.
Can I say, Liz, that you really need to take this up with me personally rather than the council, because the mayor is going to chop me off in my prime.
I look forward to doing that, John. Happy to do so anytime.
Yeah, you are right. Thank you, both of you. We now move on to the next question, which is from Kiran Nar, to ask your question of Councillor John Halsall.
Thank you. Good evening. I, along with other Wokingham residents, were invited to participate in Wokingham Borough Council's Equality Review after a summer of unrest due to the council's attitude about the Black Lives Matter movement. We complained and made representation to the council, which gained negative media attention. Did you invite us to participate in that review so that you could keep us quiet and on side?
Can I call you Kieran?
You may.
Thank you for your question. You were certainly not invited to join the review to be kept quiet. Completely the opposite. You were invited to take part in the review because we want to hear and understand your opinions and experiences, along with those others, so that these can help make our qualities plans and practices better. I very much appreciate the time you gave to this and hope that you will be able to continue your involvement. As regards being on side, I certainly hope we're on the same side. What I want is a borough council that tackles inequality, celebrates diversity and challenges all discrimination. As the equality plan being discussed tonight sets out, we are committed to improvement through collaboration with the community. This is an ongoing challenge that needs external scrutiny as well as support, and I sincerely hope you will continue to be part of that. The more engagement that we have as a council, by groups with protected characteristics and our residents generally, the better we will be able to make progress in this vital area. I hope it continues at a working level and not limited to council questions. It is the work can only progress with consent, with genuine wish to improve the lives of our residents and with cooperation of the whole community. We need all of you to actively participate in the solutions enthusiastically, cooperatively and collegiately.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a very quick supplementary?
I do. The initial invitations and promises were about the equality initiatives and review were very encouraging, and I agree all residents should have a voice and be at the heart of decision making. Whilst I recognise the work that has been done so far, I am concerned that it's not truly representative of our diverse communities. The Equality Survey had 563 responses, and the Equality Plan has been built on those responses alongside other broad data points. However, the ethnic majority population in the borough is over 17,500. So A, how can the Equality Plan be built on 563 responses, not all of which are from non-white residents? B, without any consultation with the BME Forum, who are meant to be your critical friends in these matters? And C, without full engagement of claimed community groups?
Council, briefly.
Kieran, I fully accept that we haven't got all the answers at the moment. We're on the initial steps of a very, very long journey. And that's what we're trying to do, and all good faith. You can criticise us easily for not having done enough, and I criticise us for not having done enough. But we're on that journey, and we would like your cooperation and help to put us on a course which will generate continuous improvement.
Thank you, Councillor. So next question then is from Beth Rowland, please. If you'd like to ask your question of Parry Barr.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very surprised that I'm asking it of Parry tonight because I directed it at the person responsible for disability. And having spoken to Parry before, I don't believe that that's him. And I'm very lucky that the two previous questions have been about equality and disability. And I'm asking with a view to disability. I'd like to ask a question regarding disability groups and the new style paper collection bags. Please, will you tell me how many disability groups were consulted as part of this work and what difficulties did they raise using these bags?
Thank you, Beth. Lovely to see you. Well, you've got me because that's what it says on the paper that you were asking me the question, and I believe this question was asked last year as well. As part of the process of assessing the suitability of the green recycling bags, a full equality impact assessment was undertaken, which was included as part of the decision on 11th of September. The demonstration that all groups were carefully considered in assessing the impact of this minor change to the waste collection service. Consultation with protected characteristic groups was not undertaken as the method of collection has not significantly changed and therefore it is not a substantial alteration to the existing service. However, testing has shown that the empty bags were a little bit less than the current black boxes, so it will be easier to handle because they're softer. The assisted collection service, which I think you benefit from, will continue, as well as providing advice for residents who may have specific issues. I am therefore confident that these new containers are very convenient, practicable, and in some ways easier to use for those who are elderly or have a disability.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary at all, Beth?
I do, and coming into my head are words that I would not use in a council meeting. Parry, when I last brought up a question around the new bags, you promised to contact me and you didn't. Last week, a lady arrived at my door with one bag. She didn't know why she was bringing it, nor did I, as I had been promised one to try last year. I did try it this week. I couldn't even open the Velcro. I have severe arthritis in my hands, as I'm sure a lot of other residents do. So the bag, to me, to begin with, I can't open it. And so it is absolutely useless. Neither can I cut or fold cardboard to go in it. So I don't quite know what I'm going to do with all my cardboard. The assisted collection is really good. The men know that I can't fold it, and anything that I can't deal with, I leave and they deal with it on my behalf very kindly. But I can't see that I'll be able to get anything in the bag at all.
Beth, once again, the assisted collection is there for people who can't, as you described, that you may have difficulty with putting the card in, and they will assist you. And that's what the assisted collection service is there for residents who are having difficulty, so they will assist you.
Thank
you. So there'll be someone here to open the bag for me.
They will come and collect it. If you ask, somebody will come and see you, Beth. And I'm sorry about last year, but I do remember that that everything we will do to assist people with disability. But I don't recall saying that I will call you. I'm so sorry.
You said you would. You said you would contact me.
Oh,
Thank
really?
you.
I'm sorry. I apologise then in that case. So there we are. But you will get assistance.
Thank you for that, both
Thank
of you.
you.
Could I now move on, please, to Peter Humphreys to ask his question of Charlotte Haytham-Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good luck with your post-council activities. Firstly, would Charlotte like to answer my supplementary from last month? You did promise you'd give me a written answer. I chased Democratic Services twice and to no avail. Okay, Councillor Charlotte.
Sorry, I don't recall having got it yet, but I'll give it to you written to save time for this evening.
I would appreciate if you could, Miss Tom.
Yeah.
Okay, my question for this month. Normally, when a major planning application to build houses is submitted, developers are required to provide around 35% affordable housing. Yet when the council granted itself permission to destroy Elms Field, it excluded itself from this requirement on the grounds that the development was not viable. At last month's council meeting, you provided a glowing account of the finances and stated income will cover costs in each of the next 3 years, even though there are numerous empty units, and of the occupied ones, many are in rent-free periods. You later stated profits are set to rise to £6 million per annum. In fact, you painted such a rosy picture of the development, claiming 90% of the units have been let, and as far as can be seen, businesses are so keen to be part of the place, they're not even bothering to fit out their empty units ahead of the lifting of lockdown restrictions. In view of this, would you please state how much affordable housing could have been built per annum with the £6 million per year profits, and explain why this is not being done?
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your question. Throughout, the council has been completely open and transparent about the limited amount of affordable housing in the town centre regeneration, and very specifically why this is the case. The regeneration, which consists of 3 sites, has already provided 22 affordable key worker homes as part of the Peach Place phase. We have not included further homes, as the community benefits of the regeneration scheme are so much greater than anything anyone who was not the local authority would have been able to provide. Instead, the funds that other private developers would have expected to use towards providing affordable homes are being fully utilised to pay for all of the non-profit making elements of the scheme. These are things like the new park, a destination play area, new open and pedestrianised spaces for events, public toilets, water fountains, the new road, and when it opens next year, a brand new swimming pool, leisure centre, library hub, and this will also help cater for community and cultural events. Being able to reinvest these funds into the scheme has also helped with making letting decisions that have put the town and community before pure profit margins. This has allowed us to bring in a new cinema to the town, for example, and make choices to let to independent boutiques rather than to generic high street clones who arguably would pay more but would contribute little towards creating a great future for the town. In regards to vacant units, the picture this question paints is strange. A simple walk around the town would show anyone that the majority of the Regenerations units are already up and trading, or simply waiting for permission post-lockdown to reopen their doors. The few that haven't started to fit out expect to do so soon, although the impact of COVID-19 remains an issue for the industry, with many tenants waiting for factories to begin manufacturing specialist equipment again, or for their contractors to start existing jobs, start again as existing jobs are overrunning. But right now, when our businesses have suffered so much, when the livelihoods are on the line and much more, we should all be 100% behind our businesses. For 2 council meetings in a row now, you seem to be down on Wokingham and down on its businesses. Some of these businesses are very new and just about to open in our town, and we welcome them warmly. My message is very clear tonight on behalf of this council. I am for this town and for its success.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a very brief supplementary at all?
I do. Well, the council has always pointed out these are separate schemes, so there is in fact no affordable housing in Elms, so make a note of that. But moving on to what you just said, in one of the shop units at Elmsfield, the internal floor area is about ½ a metre higher than the pavement outside, making it impossible to open the front door inwards. Access is obviously impossible for wheelchair users and difficult and dangerous for the able-bodied. Why have the council accepted a building does not meet the requirements of health and safety legislation, and are any steps being taken to get the developer to fix this at their expense?
Thank you. Briefly.
And obviously all those units are still empty facing the field, just as a matter of interest.
The units facing the fields, they may be empty at the moment. Not all of them are actually, but the ones which you're inferring, some of them are actually already let, but they're waiting, as I said, for fit out at the moment. And just to give you an example at the moment, one unit in the regeneration scheme, we've had 3 offers for it on the table last week. So it's not all doom and gloom. And in terms of what you're saying in terms of the different floor levels, I don't know very precisely about that, but I can look into that unit. Do you know exactly which unit it is? Because I don't know which the one you're referring to, but I'm very happy to look into it.
Yep, you can see the picture behind me. It's right next to Starbucks, and it's blindingly obvious to anyone who's been there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Humphreys. At the end of that one, we now move on to Louise Timblin. Could you ask your question, please, of Councillor Ulla-Corinne Clark?
Yes. Thank you. So I've heard that some local childcare providers are struggling financially due to a number of issues related to the pandemic, including furloughed parents not needing childcare or parents reluctant to take up childcare places due to lack of COVID testing available in early years settings. What actions, in addition to those already taken, are the council planning to further support the viability of the local childcare sector so that working parents will have access to local, affordable, high-quality care after the pandemic?
Thank you. Councillor Clark, would you like to answer, please? Councillor Clark, are you there? You disappeared off the screen and off the sound. A few more seconds and then we'll go on to the next question. Don't know what's happened. Right. I
did have a supplementary, so can I ask my supplementary to get a written answer?
Yes, I suppose so. Yes.
So my supplementary is whether the council is planning to do an assessment of supply and demand of childcare provision to ensure that a lack of spaces is not a factor in preventing parents, which is usually mothers, from returning to work post-pandemic.
Okay, thank you for that. So question and a supplementary, and you will get a written answer to those.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that whatever the technicality is, that Councillor Clark's disappeared. Okay. The next question then is, again, if we can keep these brief because we don't have much time left, Mr. Keith Carr to ask his question of John Halsall. And if we can get to the question a bit quicker than the intro, please. Thank you. Mr. Carr, Keith Carr? Are you not there? Sounds no. Okay, well, he'll get it's difficult to
I said to you I'll yield my time to Paul Exeter and Jeff Hind, and if we have time at the end I'll come back to my questions.
Okay, thank you. So we move on then to Paul Exeter, please, to ask your question of Councillor Halsall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to let you know, I'm a former chair of the African Caribbean Society in Wokingham, and I represented the BME Forum on Wokingham Strategic Partnership for a few years. Now, the BME Forum was paused for the council to find and to fund an independent facilitator to take stock and reflect on its direction by the then acting chair of the forum 5 months ago. What we need to know is what was the outcome of the independent facilitator's reflections, and when will the conclusions be made public?
That's a question. Oh, that's a question to me. Can I call you Paul?
Certainly.
Yeah. I can confirm that an independent facilitator has been engaged to undertake this work. The work will include one-to-one sections and focus groups, and Councillor Carrie Bath has written to many stakeholders to invite them to join. The opportunity to take part is still open, as we need to hear from all those concerned, and so would encourage anybody, and yourself, interested to contact us. The findings will be due in May, and at that stage we will be working with the BME Forum to implement the recommendations.
Right, thank you. Do you have a very quick supplementary at all, please?
Yes, I have, Mr. Mayor. Well, we understand today from Wokingham Times that you've consulted several BME organisations, including the St Vincent and the Grenadines and Friends Association, of which I am the chairman, on the equality policy, but we did not receive your consultation. You then proceeded unilaterally to appoint Jude Line Nicholas Associates to work with the BME representatives to decide the future of the BME Forum. Now, are you, leader, happy with the way you've consulted the BME groups? And is this what you call partnership working?
Well, up to when you've raised this query, I have been happy, yes. Obviously, now that you've raised the query, I shall follow it up and see why you weren't invited or why you were not contacted.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall, for that. Well, I suppose, you haven't had a supplementary, have you? Paul, would you like to?
No, I mean, I've answered. I mean, the leader has failed to answer. The leader has failed satisfactorily to answer my question.
Okay, thank you. So we move on. We have about little more than a minute to go, but I'm tempted to try the last question. If you can be very quick, please, Mr. Jeffrey Hines, to ask your question of Councillor Halsall, and if you can keep these very, very brief. That's Mr. Jeffrey Hines.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, and good evening all. I will be brief. I'm a former chairman of the African Caribbean Society and a founder member of the BME Forum in 2006, contrary to the information that was circulated, which mentioned 2002, which is inaccurate. My question is to the leader of the council, Mr. Halsall. As leader of the Woking Borough Council, you claim that equality was hardwired into the council's DNA. Of the 129 million budget for the council 2020 to 2021, what percentage was allotted to equality initiatives, and how much was spent on equality initiatives for those with protected characteristics as defined under the Equalities Act 2010.
Councillor Halsall, if you can, please.
Well,
Because
Jeffrey,
I can say there will be no supplementary on this one because there's not enough time. But Councillor Halsall, you can answer the question, certainly.
well, Jeffrey, I'm delighted to see you. Absolutely delighted. Thank you for the question, and I hope that it starts a real dialogue between us. The answer to your question is all of it. We spend not only 130 million, but we spend about 600 million in a year. And it should all be with the equalities and diversity policy in mind. As you quote, equality is hardwired into our DNA. So everything we do should contribute to it in some way, and we should be mindful of equalities. Fortunately, that makes the details of your question almost impossible to answer. For example, when we build roads, schools, leisure facilities, parks and play areas, we do so following an assessment on their impact on equalities. However, I can say that about 35% of 129 million, 400 budget went on adult social care. That is more than 45 million. The core aims of this service include ensuring that older residents and people with disabilities, both protected characteristics, are safe and cared for and free from fear and harm, so that they can live, learn and thrive. I believe it's reasonable to find that as money allocated for equality initiatives. There are also specific services initiatives on top of this 45 million plus, which should be mentioned. This is not a comprehensive list, but gives an indication of our commitment. Disability facilities grants for adapting the homes of people with disabilities to enable them to live independently. Provision of Gypsy Roma, traveller, protected characteristic race, accommodation, pitches and outreach workers that ensure families are able to access education.
15 seconds, please, Councillor Halsall, if you can.
And I go on. In addition to these, there's a whole series of initiatives, Jeff, which we undertake. The council has also established an inequalities steering group and a tackling racism matters working group, both of which have a significant dedicated officer. What I would say, if I may, just in conclusion, please engage. My phone is there. I take calls to everybody. I've spoken to Keith on a number of occasions, and I'm really, really keen to get to know you and buy you lunch when we're allowed to.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your considered answer, and I look forward to the continued hard work and good productive work of the BME Forum in the community.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's the end of that. We've overrun time, but I noticed Andy Croy has put his hand up. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to propose we extend this section of the meeting to allow Mr. Kerr to ask his question, rather than cut it
I think
short.
I said before we did the questions that we were not intending to extend it because we've already overrun and we have a very full agenda.
Said, but I would like to propose, if you won't do this momentarily, I would like to propose we have a vote on it then, because we've got just one public question left. Mr. Hines hasn't had a supplementary.
Do you have a second?
I think it would be discourteous not to offer Mr. Kerr the chance to ask his question.
I will second that. I will second that, Councillor Burgess.
Okay, so it's proposed by Councillor Croy and seconded by Councillor Burgess, and we have to take a vote on it very quickly. Can we do a hands up vote on this, please? If you are in favour of extending to allow this additional question beyond our normal time, could you put your hands in the air, please? And I'll get somebody to count them.
Oddly enough, Mr. Mayor, the time you've taken to take the count, I could have answered my question, but of course, your arithmetic is better than mine.
I'll be with you shortly. Yes, sorry, lots of people stuck their hands up, but of course the only people qualified to vote are members, elected members, and we had a lot of other hands. So we're going through the count to check the members first. I'll be with you in a moment. Okay, you have the support of the members. So, Mr. Carr, would you like to put your question, please? Can you keep it as briefly as possible because we are tight for time? Thank you.
As ever I do, Mr. Mayor. John, in May, the local elections come up in May 21 for the Borough Council and Thames Valley Police Commissioners. Now, as you know, Wokingham Borough Council is likely to be on a knife edge and therefore keenly contested. There's just over 12.5% of Wokingham Borough's residents are non-whites, and they're generally clustered in concentrated areas around the borough. Now, as the current leader of the council, what will you tell them about how you and the Conservative-led council have positively engaged with the community, with non-white community members, since the indignation that we've suffered about the Facebook post and your negative statements about Black Lives Matter last spring/summer?
Right. So the question finally brought there. Councillor Halsall, are you able to give a...
Yes, indeed. I was talking to myself. Keith, how lovely to see you. Thank you for your question. Although I have to say that it's very odd that you link the council's proposed equality plan with party politics and local elections. It is disappointing that a question introduced as relating to the equality plan, in fact, does no such thing, because we do honestly and earnestly want questions and scrutiny on the plan itself. However, to answer your question, since last summer, I have repeatedly stated at every opportunity my own and the council's commitment to tackling racism. We have consulted the public on what we need to do to eradicate racism and celebrate diversity. We have signed the Race at Work Charter to increase equality for our staff. And just as a footnote, I would say we have also had a COVID pandemic, which has occupied very much our staff and ourselves. I've met you and other interested residents to positively engage on these issues and will continue to do so. We have worked to restore the BME Forum, including by funding an independent, highly experienced facilitator to help the forum function well for everybody. And we have ensured that our commitment to stamping out racism is at the heart of the equality plan that is on tonight's agenda. We've also engaged very closely with ethnic minority groups and others in the community who are deemed to be at greater risk from COVID-19. This has included providing regular targeted advice and support in many ways, including with faith groups. Despite what you may imply, this has nothing to do with party politics and everything to do with protecting and serving our residents and all our residents to the best of our abilities. I sincerely hope you can find it in yourself to work with us and help us improve and enact our equality plan and our anti-racist stance.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Do you have a supplementary, Mr. Carr?
Yeah, I've got to say, I have a signed agreement with you about engaging the community and the processes by which the council will adopt, which has been ignored. When these people come to me and say, people of colour come to me and say, what should we do? How should we vote? What are they doing for us? Should I say to them that you and the council that you lead are incompetent, untrustworthy, or duplicitous? Which?
Neither, Keith.
I think there are three things, actually, John.
Well, your questions are always leading questions, so you really should not use this agenda as party politics. It's very, very dangerous, and you are certainly a man who understands that. Whoever is in this position will have a quality policy they need to take forward, and I'm determined that it is we will take it forward.
Does that mean you'll honour the agreement we've made then, John?
I've always honoured agreements I've made, particularly to you.
I've always regarded you as a gentleman, John.
Thank you very much, Keith. Lovely to see you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, that's the end of question time, the extended question time. We now move on to agenda item 103, which is petitions. Petitioners have up to 3 minutes to summarise their petition. Does anyone wish to hand in a petition?
Yes, please, Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and I have got my hand up. I'm not sure that you noticed it.
Okay, so you can do yours first then, and then Mr. Coomber will follow. Yes.
Calling Hellier Simons. I'd like
Yes.
to put a petition on behalf of many residents of Wokingham Without. So far this evening, by 7 o'clock, there were 362 signatories. I'll read the petition in full as it's self-explanatory. As you're aware, on May the 6th, 2021, Oakland School will be again used as a polling station for local elections. This means that 2 schools and a nursery will be closed, denying pupils yet another day of education. Following the pandemic and vastly reduced amount of schooling for children, we find this is unacceptable and believe that an alternative site should be used. We refuse to believe that another location could not be utilised for this purpose, therefore allowing our children to attend a valuable day of education. The petition has been organised in conjunction with Oakland School. That's the end of the words of the petition, but I might add that some alternatives have been suggested by the signatories. For example, Pinewood Leisure Centre, St Sebastian's Cricket Pavilion, or even a marquee in a field somewhere. And comments were also made that it's not only just about education, but about working parents having to find childcare in this difficult lockdown as well. I personally am happy to support this petition, and as we are not currently in the council chamber and I can't hand it to you physically, I will email the words to Democratic Services tomorrow. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Hellier Simons. And now I believe Mr. Robert Coomber is next, and he has a petition. Would you like to speak on it, please, Mr. Coomber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to address the council with regard to our petition asking for a redesign of the South Wokingham Distributor Road to better protect pedestrians and cyclists. There are 2,500 new homes that will be served by the new Distributor Road, and as a result of COVID, it's likely that many of the residents of these and other homes in the borough will be working from home at least some of the time, a change that is now likely to be permanent. This should drive an increase in the number of people wanting to make short journeys into the town or around where they live for exercise, a break from work, a snack, or a treat. And we should try to encourage, where possible, and ensure that these journeys are made by foot or by bicycle. The South Wokingham Distributor Road is a part of the evolution of Wokingham itself into a much larger town and presents an opportunity to encourage residents in exactly this way. Over the next 10 years or so, the council should adopt measures to encourage a significant growth in active transport, which is primarily walking and cycling, including electric supported cycling. This will help to ensure an improvement in air quality and a reduction in carbon production, at the same time as improving physical and mental health and even reducing obesity. It's part of your challenge for the future to evolve the borough in a way that supports this. Mixing pedestrians, cyclists and motor vehicles in the way that the road is currently designed will absolutely not support this. It will not encourage people out of their cars. The government's own cycle infrastructure design document, which the council agreed 3 days ago to adopt, acknowledges that without good design of roads and cycle networks, cycling simply won't happen at the levels that we require. And it would be madness to build a major new roadway that actually hinders this growth. A number of objections have already been raised with the existing design, including, for me, most importantly, the local volunteer group that specialises in cycling and walking in Wokingham. We've already raised concerns with the council about the design of this road and the Western Gateway, pointing out how the design does not meet the needs of cyclists and pedestrians and does not meet government recommendations. So what I and my co-sponsors are asking is for you to look again at the design of this road while we still can. Having now formally adopted the government's cycle infrastructure design, please apply it to this major new roadway. Make it safe and encouraging for non-motor vehicle users and help prepare us for the next 20 years. A small amount of time and money now will save us a fortune in the future and provide for a better standard of life from the start. And all that's really required is to reconsider a flawed design. All we're really asking is that you care enough to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimber. I believe your petition has already been sent to Democratic Services and it will now be passed on to the appropriate officer.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move on to the next agenda item, which is 104. And this is for about trading standards, environmental health and licensing. Councillor Halsall, I understand you are going to propose this report. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And do you have a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And who is that seconder, please?
That's me, Mr. Mayor. Parry Bart.
Parry Bart, thank you. Okay, so you can now speak, Councillor Halsall, for up to 3 minutes, please. I'll inform you when you're nearing the limit.
Thank you. Wokingham is the lowest funded authority in England because of its low deprivation. It is also considered to be the healthiest authority and one of the best places to live. This gives us an opportunity to focus on individual cases or areas of need. Our objective is extensive and continual analysis, so our limited resources are focused where it can be of the greatest benefit. We call it our neighbourhoods policy. Our health goals are mobility, loneliness and mental health. Our equalities goals have been well rehearsed tonight and will be rehearsed in the next item. Our ambition is to provide a wraparound service to our residents that keep them safe, secure and happy. To provide a wraparound service, we need to repatriate the control of the more than 100 pieces of legislation which we've delegated to West Berks and subsequently to the PPP. Indeed, currently our residents blame us and hold us responsible for these duties. They are more than a little puzzled that we do not have any authority at the moment. The PPP works at our request, but we do not have the power to set up their priorities. We aim to tailor the service delivery at locality level. This will give rise to a clearer, cohesive response to issues that confront our communities, such as antisocial behaviour, fly tipping, unauthorised encampments, noise, bonfires, neighbourhoods disputes. The delivery will be integrated into other council services such as localities, community safety, legal, children's and adults. This will make a better use of the capacity of existing locality officers, offering early and decisive intervention and prevention. It is also anticipated this will engender effective joined-up professional responses across the service specialisms, safety, enforcement, environmental health, with swift responses resulting in increased resident satisfaction and potential efficiencies. For example, a noisome neighbour plays his piano at 3 o'clock in the morning, keeping everybody awake, or a troublesome bonfire requires immediate intervention, which in most cases will solve the problem. The increased crime rate in Wokingham Town and the death of Sarah Everard underwrite our need to be active in all areas in our community. We cannot leave it to others. We have to take responsibility. Initially, we shall replicate what currently exists, but no doubt in time, the service will dynamically respond to resident demands on a real-time basis. There is no doubt that we shall have to use outside agencies for the delivery of some of the service, which may include the PPP, but does not exclude other authorities or the private sector should they be more willing or more capable. I would hope that this would be an endeavour to which all the council responds and invite the opposition to second the motion. However, the administration is equally happy to go it alone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Bear with me a moment whilst I'm just.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bath, do you wish to speak as the seconder? Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I reserve the right to speak later, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So does anyone else wish to speak on this, please?
Yes, Lindsay Ferris here. I've already advised we've got an amendment.
Okay. Do you have a seconder to your amendment?
Yes, Malcolm, you are not visible on the screen at the moment. It's Prue Bray, I'm seconding.
Was that? Oh, yes, I can appear now. Thank you. Yes, you. I'm waiting for the seconder for you, please.
Sorry, I'm proposer and Prue seconder.
Prue is seconder.
Sorry, I did just say Malcolm.
Yes, I know, but I was checking whether I was on vision or sound, and so I didn't pay quite enough attention to that last comment. Sorry. Councillor Ferris, do you wish to speak for, I think it's 3 minutes. Yes, you can speak for 3 minutes now.
Thank you. I don't think I'll take a full 3 minutes, but I will. We have made a number of amendments to it, so I'll start now. Liberal Democrat Group agrees that the PPP service in its current form no longer meets the needs of either our local residents or that of Wokingham Borough Council itself. However, we have concerns about how to achieve the changes proposed, hence why we have the motion that the amendment which was up on the screen. Liberal Democrat Group believes it is important to have a backup set of arrangements in place should the move to a standalone Wokingham Borough service encounter problems in either achieving the timescales or being able to find the appropriate staff to perform the new function. We believe the working group that is to be set up should look at all possible options, including whether it is possible to improve the current service, whether it would be possible to use elements of the PPP service, or whether it would be possible to achieve a standalone service rather than just look at developing a standalone only service. We also have concerns about the likely additional costs of developing a standalone service and need clear evidence that this issue can be managed sufficiently well to enable a cost-effective service to be provided in the future. These two issues are the main differences between the two groups. We both want a better, much more locally focused service that meets the needs of our local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferris. Councillor Bray, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Yeah, I will speak now, please.
Yes, fine, please do so.
Is my camera on? No. Yes, right, that's better.
Yes,
we have put forward this amendment because we don't think enough has been done to try to sort out the problems with the partnership before taking what's effectively the nuclear option. Not only that, but we have doubts as to whether bringing back these services in-house will actually be a magic cure. The Conservatives first introduced a shared service about 10 years ago because in-house wasn't working, either for service quality or for service cost. When that didn't work, they had another go at a revamped shared service, which is not perfect in terms of quality. But while not delivering on their rather optimistic projected savings, it has only seen inflationary increases. The joint board minutes show little evidence that anyone from Wokingham has made an effort to change things, but plenty of evidence of services being hampered by failure to sort out the IT, the service level agreements, the case management system, and the accommodation. We have not had reports to council on what is going on, and our website doesn't even signpost to the dates or papers for the meetings of the joint board, unlike the other two councils in the partnership. Why is abandoning the shared service the answer? We will have a less resilient service with fewer specialist staff and less ability to spread overhead costs. And of course, there's the opportunity for IT, case management, staffing issues and so on to arise during the transition. Of course, there are things which we could do in-house to improve service delivery to residents, but we need to see a proper set of costings and a proper plan for that. We also need to be told why it's impossible to make those changes within the terms of the partnership or to alter the partnership to accommodate what this council wants. We may not be able to negotiate it, but at least we ought to have tried. But that's not what we're presented with. Instead, in the original recommendation, we're being asked to vote through an irreversible process of leaving the partnership before we have any concrete plans for what we would replace it with, and with only a few months to come up with them. Hence our amendment. There isn't even a commitment in the recommendations to cross-party involvement in the process, and that's why we have introduced that as well. Please, I urge you to vote for the amendment, and then we can vote for the recommendations, but I can't support the recommendations as they stand.
Thank you. I can see these display on the screen now. We'll leave it on for a short while for you to read before we continue. Once you read it, can everybody who's got cameras on and doesn't need them, can they please turn the cameras off, please? Right, it's disappeared now. So can I ask then, Councillor Halsall, do you accept the amendment proposed by Councillor Ferris? Councillor Halsall, you're muted.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. Mayor.
That's right.
I have the best
can I ask you if you accept the amendment?
No, I do not accept their amendment. The reasoning is that it's a fundamental.
Well, we don't have to speak on it. We just have to ask at the moment whether you accept it. If you don't, which is what you said, then we have to debate the amendment only and decide for the members to decide whether they want to accept that amendment as an alternative or in conjunction or whatever. So, does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Could you use the hands up feature, please? These displays are in two parts and they don't. Right, I've got here Councillor Stephen Conway, his hand's in the air. And then John Halsall's hand is after that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The point I wish to make is that the Liberal Democrat group is concerned that the motion as it's presented to us, or the action as it's presented to us, would actually set us on an irrevocable path. And before we take such a step, it may, of course, turn out to be that is a desirable step. But before we take such a step, our belief is that there should be a real attempt to, first of all, work out whether this is the only option that would give us the local responsiveness that we all seek, whether we are prepared to sacrifice the benefits of economies of scale, which the current arrangement clearly provides. And there is an enormous danger, in our view, that by irrevocably committing ourselves to a course of action without having yet prepared, without having thoroughly worked out the costs and the options, we would be committing ourselves to a very foolhardy act that could end up with either a poorer service for our residents or a great deal more expensive service for our residents, or quite possibly both. So this is the reason we propose the amendment. It's an amendment designed to give the council more confidence that this is the right way forward. And so I would urge all colleagues of all parties and all groups to support this amendment. It's designed to protect the council and protect our residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Conway. I'm sorry, it isn't John Halsall next. It's just that he left his hand sticking in the air, so which is why I mentioned the name. But he gets to speak at the end. So the next person to speak then, after you've spoken, if you can always take your hand down, Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubey is next.
I'm sorry. I think I must have left my hand up. Sorry.
Okay. Well, in that case, it's Councillor John Kaiser. Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Councillor Halsey, you speak at the end after we've given everybody else an opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in favour of the original paper. Part of the problem is we can't do anything until we've handed notice to these people. But my concern with the existing PPP is that it has allowed some of our enforcement services to become Cinderella services. I'd like to think that by bringing it back in-house, we could build a stronger enforcement team, not just for the things that PPP do currently, which Councillor Horsall referred to, such as bonfires, noise, antisocial behaviour, but also we could use it, we could push it together with our planning enforcement, with our tree enforcement, and build a very, very substantial enforcement. It is one of the areas that the more and more the residents are asking us to do. It is extremely difficult for us to forge a relationship with the police when we have this remote relationship with West Berkshire. I have on numerous occasions, I've had residents ring me and tell me they've got a problem with a neighbour, with a bonfire, with an issue, and I ring somebody in West Berkshire. They've either gone home or they've got nobody there to send out to it. These are things that the neighbours need to be dealt with urgently. They cannot wait. So I am in real favour of bringing this forward. I believe as a council we have the resources. We do an awful lot of the legal service already, which is very much the complicated bit. I think if you find our own legal services handle most of that. So I'm not in favour of supporting this amendment, but I am in favour of supporting the original paper. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we've had Imogen, we've had John Kaiser. Does anyone else want to speak on this?
Me, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Well, I was going to say, if no one else speaks, then you do have the right to speak. So it's you in either case.
Gary Cowan on there. Mr. Mayor, you've got Gary Cowan who wants to speak.
That's just appeared. Okay. Councillor Gary Cowan, would you like to speak? Your hand's just appeared.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Kaiser made some very valid points there on enforcement, which I would support. But my personal dealings, I must admit, on environmental health issues with West Berks have been actually, generally speaking, of the highest quality. And Councillor Ferris also made interesting points that what we mustn't do is take the nuclear option and walk away from this. No system is perfect. And I would rather see us taking time and looking at the options. There may be areas, there most certainly will be areas we can improve, but there are certain areas now that work and we should retain. So I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this? No. Then in that case, we go to John Halsall to speak before we go to the vote.
Mr. Mayor. There are a number of comments I would say with what has been raised. Firstly, we wish to retain the parts of the service which works well. Unfortunately, the agreement that we have with the other authorities is that we are not permitted to enter into those negotiations until and after we've given notice. The contract is the inter-authority agreement is very specific about that process. The inter-authority agreement is one where the pieces of legislation, and I say about 125 of them, are delegated to the exclusive use of the PPP. So in order to have control of those pieces of legislation from the borough, regrettably we have to give notice. The diseconomies of scale argument is a strange one, because we've actually had few economies of scale, and we have actually diseconomies of scale. But most importantly, we have no control on the priorities which the PPP are engaged upon. It's not giving us what we need. We have a huge amount of fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, unauthorised encampments, noise, bonfires, neighbourhood disputes, which are not on the priorities of the PPP. We need to have the ability to choose our own priorities and then dedicate our staff to those priorities. Unfortunately, the amendment would increase the costs because we would neither be in nor out, and we'd be hedging our bets. We have a localities team which we need to have to use, and we need to be unfettered to go and do for our officers to negotiate the best agreement which we can with West Berks and Bracknell. So unfortunately, I can't accept the amendment. I did amend the amendment with something which I could accept, but unfortunately that was unacceptable to the opposition. So I can't accept the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Colonel Halsall. Then we now go to the vote. So we're going to use the hands up facility. So can I make sure, please, that everybody make sure their hands are down? Okay. And if we're starting there, then we're going first of all to ask for those who are going to vote for this amendment, the amendment standalone. If you are in favour and you are for, please put your hands up now. Okay, could you put your hands down now, please? Everybody put hands down. And now we're going to ask all those who are against this amendment standalone. Oh. I was hoping all the hands were down. If you are against this, can you please put your hands up now? And this is the against vote. Okay, it's much easier when it's using hands, isn't it? Put all the hands down now, please. All hands down. I can't see any hands up, so that, oh, I still see two. Right, all hands down. So now we are going to go for the abstain vote. If you're going to abstain from voting on this amendment on its own, please put your hands up now. The amendments are not agreed. Okay, so because the amendments are not agreed on their own, we return to the debate on the original one as it stood. And so at this point, does anyone wish to speak? And this is on the original proposal as in the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you, but there's members of the public with their hands up, I believe.
Oh, well, the people checking can see obviously who are members and who are not, but I can't see any. I have a couple of separate people looking at them, so this is the abstain anyway. Okay. Well, there's some hands still up, so right, okay.
My hand is up because I wish to speak on this.
Right. Those who've got their hands up will obviously wish to speak now, so let me go to them. And the first name on the list is Rachel Burgess.
Mr. Mayor. Now, we know that decades of outsourcing by the Conservatives have weakened our public services. And while there's always a need for external expertise, insourcing can help to support and develop our local public services. However, this change put before us this evening raises some significant questions. First, why has this structure been imposed on us in Wokingham for years if it is not fit for purpose? To exit this arrangement is costing us £500,000 at a time when finances are extremely stretched, which raises some serious questions about why we went down this route in the first place and then stuck with it. There are also specific questions that the change will raise around staffing. Can the Conservatives assure us that there will be no detrimental, unfair effect on the staff involved, both those whose roles may be redundant as a result of this change, or those officers already employed by Wokingham who may find their workload substantially increased? And there is another question around the benefits that being part of a larger structure can bring. I don't necessarily mean the economies of scale that Councillor Halsall was just talking about, but some of the activities of the PPP rely on links higher up the chain or much wider than Wokingham Borough Council. I'm thinking of things like tackling smuggling, money laundering, organised crime, modern slavery, those kinds of things. So how will Wokingham ensure that it can tackle these issues as effectively on its own? So in summary, I agree that the irrevocable nature of this decision is key tonight, and that there are some significant questions that should be answered before it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? No?
Andy Croy has got his hand up, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, Andy Croy, would you like to speak now, please?
Thank you. As well as obviously agreeing with everything Rachel has just said, I guess my question is about scrutiny. I've just checked the agenda for the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee forward agenda on the 24th of February, and this item wasn't on the forward agenda from what I can see. Instead, it's popped up at a special executive meeting that happened earlier today, and as a result, it seems to be on the agenda of an Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee after today's council. Now, this is precisely the sort of item that should be subject to scrutiny. I don't see any mention of scrutiny at all. And while we're on the subject of scrutiny, we as a group, we can't recall the whole PPP issue ever coming up in scrutiny. Other issues of a similar nature, like the grass contract and bins, have come up in scrutiny. So it just seems very weird, and we're struggling to understand how this has just dropped out of nowhere. And it does make us uncomfortable, as does the leader's admission that future services will be or may be effectively privatised. That's not the way to go. If this was a commitment to bring services genuinely in-house, there would be far more support for this than we can currently muster. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Can't see any other hands up. So, Councillor Halsall, then, would you like to have the right to reply before we go to the vote?
I certainly would. If I could say to the leader of the Labour Party, Andy, and Rachel, that I agree. I agree. My policy in the 2 years that I've been leader has been to encourage staff to be bold, take risks, not look over their shoulders, and to be proud of working for Wokingham Borough. And I think COVID has demonstrated the success of that policy. I believe in our staff. I believe immensely in our staff, and the flexibility which we had because we had a big caucus of staff during COVID was remarkable and compared very favourably to authorities who've subsidised, gone to outsourcing their services. I don't believe in outsourcing for its sake. I only believe when outsourcing when it makes sense. There is no question of privatising anything. If we can do it in-house, we will do it in-house. But there are specialist services like rat catching, which perhaps you wouldn't necessarily have in-house because they're specialised services. And the answer to the question,
rats in the house.
The answer to the question of whether we would, I've just been thrown off. I lost my train of thought, Lindsay, but that's possibly why you did it. One of the reasons that it's we've had to be very swift on this is because there are 100 staff, and Susan will have to tomorrow react to those staff. Those staff are very uncertain in the knowledge of what we're doing, and it's very unsettling, and therefore we need to settle that as quickly as possible. We do have benefits of scale which will come out of bringing it in-house, but some of the issues are specialist issues, and if the PPP has those specialist services, then we should use them. But we need to have control of the decision-making process rather than subcontract the decision-making process. I agree with specialist areas like modern slavery, where we need to have the fullest cooperation of the police in particular, and the specialist agencies. We wouldn't be on our own, and this is one of the fallacies of these arguments. I believe there are 650 local authorities, 350 of which are top-tier authorities, all of whom have these services, all of whom could help us if we needed to be helped. The three authorities that Susan's been in have the services which we could piggyback off if it was necessary. But let me reassure you, Rachel and Andy, if I'm the leader, we will certainly prefer our staff. We are an administration, and our staff.
Can you come to a prompt close, please, Councillor?
Indeed, Mr. Mayor. Our staff is our core resource, and we have to nurture them and support them. So I would like to recommend the recommendation in the paper.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. In fact, I should have allowed Parry Bart to speak before you because he was the seconder and he reserved his right to speak. So, and then you should have followed him. However, it is acceptable for him to speak now because he reserved his right, and then we'll go to the vote. So, Parry Bart, would you like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for remembering me. Mr. Mayor, public health services are important to our residents. These services covering environmental health, trading standards and licensing are currently provided through a shared service by West Berkshire. But now we feel that time is right to bring back these services back in-house to serve our residents in a much more timely fashion, and I won't labour on that point too much. After all, we are here only to serve our residents, and we have a vision to service that looks at and meets the needs of the residents. And that is the main reason why we want to bring the service back in-house. For most residents, life is governed by their environment and by the issues that come from congested traffic, litter, waste, loneliness, and mental health. So we as an authority need to reposition ourselves to provide timely public health services to our residents. We can do this much more professionally and effectively by bringing public protection services back in-house and taking control. We feel that by bringing these services back, it would be easier for the residents to have a fantastic resolution to nuisances such as noisy neighbours, fly tipping, bonfires, antisocial behaviour, etc., etc. So I fully support this paper and I'm pleased to second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. We now go then on to doing the vote, and we will do the vote the same way with the hands up options. So can you all make sure that your hands are completely down? No spare hands on display? And we are going to take the for vote first. So if you are in favour, remember now we are going on the original recommendations, not the amendments. If you are for the original recommendations and you are for it, please use your hands up now. So can you put your hands down now, please? And now we are going to go for the against vote. If you are against the recommendations in the agenda, please use your hands up now. Okay, I think we've counted them. So take all hands down again. And now we come for the third one, which is the abstentions. If all your hands are down and you want to abstain against the original vote, please put your hand up now. Right, recommendations have been agreed as in the agenda. Thank you, everybody. So we now move on to the next item, which is 105, and it's sorry, I'm going to turn over the page here. Yes, 105 equality plan, and we have 30 minutes for this again, same idea. So Councillor Halsall, I understand that you are going to propose this report. Is that correct? Councillor Halsall?
I'm here, sorry.
Okay, I believe you're going to propose this report.
Yes, indeed I am.
And do you have a seconder?
Yes, indeed I have.
It's Councillor Blumenthal.
Laura Blumenthal, thank you. And so would you like now to speak for up to 3 minutes, please, Councillor Halsall, on the equalities?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had to rush to that. The protected characteristics are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. All of them, and they're equally important. The council is the golden thread that runs through our borough, that is the indispensable partner for our residents and businesses. Diversity, equality, anti-racism and addressing need must be at the heart of everything we do and of example we set. No rational person would take any other point of view. Every one of our residents must be able to lead the life that he or she wishes without fear from harm and without harming others. The equality policy that we put in front of you today is the first step in this continuous journey in which every day we must strive to do better. The equality plan has been developed in line with the Council's vision and corporate delivery plan. It strengthens how we will enrich the lives of our residents in safe and strong communities and outlines our ambition to tackle inequality. We serve an increasingly diverse community with different needs in both rural and urban settings. The impact of the pandemic has been devastating for many residents and businesses and brought inequality into sharp focus. The equality plan included an online survey and a number of focus sessions with community groups, staff and members. The qualitative feedback has provided valuable insight to understand that we can do better within the internal workings of the council, as well as what we can do to ensure that we can deliver more inclusive services that will lead to improved outcomes from our communities. The priorities proposed that for the coming 4 years are to listen and learn from our communities and use this to deliver services that work well for everyone, act on our commitments in equality, diversity and inclusion in the way we plan, deliver and shape our services, build a diverse and engaged workforce where everyone is respected. An action plan has been developed and sets out how we will seek to ensure that there is a progress against each of our priorities through the first year, to ensure that we are successful in making a meaningful impact on key measures of equality and achieve the ambitions set out in this plan. We have adopted the Local Government Association Equality Framework. This is an established, credible and objective performance framework to measure our performance and results. Progress and delivery will be monitored to ensure that we progress to the highest levels possible for each element of the framework. At a future point, we'll be able to invite peer challenge and support to ensure that our assessments of our performance and progress is credible. I recommend the report to Council. I recommend the Council approves the Equality Plan and the associated action plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Councillor Laura Blumenthal. Sorry?
Apologies for being late.
It's fine. I apologise for I missed Councillor Perry Barr before you in the previous speech. I should have put him the other way around. Yes, so Councillor Laura Blumenthal, you are the seconder. Do you wish to speak now or speak later?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll speak now. Thank you.
Okay, please continue.
This equality plan is a real step up in helping ensure that everyone in Woking Borough can live happy lives where they feel safe and part of a supportive community in which they can flourish. Equality is a serious issue, and this is a serious strategy. It has the right balance of targets and timelines with the flexibility that such a complex issue needs. Using the Local Government Association's framework ensures a nationally recognised measure, and this will help us benchmark our performance against other councils, helping our scrutiny committees and residents know how we're performing and the direction we're going in. The number one priority in our equality plan impresses what we value as the utmost importance: to listen to and learn from our communities and use this to deliver services that work well for everyone. How we promote equality in our borough needs to be guided by the people who live, learn and work here. The plan will be reviewed every year, so it's a living document, always looking for improvement. A lot of work has already been done in seeking the views of 200 local community groups, organisations and service providers. Engagement with the local community will be a constant, including with the resident equality group being set up. But to those who are aware of something the council can do better in this area, then we want to hear from you. Please don't sit in silence, reach out. Only with the insights of all residents can we deliver the equality we need. Our friendly door is always open to everyone in our borough, and we will listen to you. As a member of the Councillors' Steering Committee on the Equality Plan, I'd like to thank the hard work of the officers on it. Their passion for equality and commitment to driving up standards for our residents is exactly what we need, and the document reflects this. The Councillors' Steering Committee is cross-party, and I was deeply impressed by all political parties' clear dedication to equality in our borough. Councillors of all parties made valuable contributions to the plan, and the meetings have probably been amongst the most constructive and positive that I've ever been a part of. As the leader council said earlier in this meeting, we're all on the same side here when it comes to equality. I look forward to seeing the impact this plan has and how it will be added to and strengthened by ongoing engagement and advice from our residents. I recommend this council approves the equality plan as well as the action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blumenthal. So now we open it up. Does anyone else wish to speak on this issue? Please use the hands up if you do. Right, the first hand up on my list here is Councillor Shirley Boyt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am a member of the Equalities Plan Steering Group, and at its very first meeting I stressed the need for the plan and its objectives to be written in plain English. As the plan developed, I continued to press for this, but as time went on it became obvious that the task would be too great in the very short time frame allocated to this important project. Although some simplification has occurred, the plan, and more importantly its equalities objectives, still contain far too much council speak. And this in itself is actually discriminatory. Many of the residents for whom this plan should offer protection from discrimination, those for whom English is a second language or those with learning difficulties, just two examples, will struggle to understand what this plan means for them. And in this event, the plan will have failed, plain and simple, or rather not so plain and simple. I would like to stress that I intend no criticism of my fellow steering group members and the officers who have all been incredibly committed to the project. But what we see here this evening is still a work in progress, which has been rushed. It's not a finished plan, and I would urge Council not to approve the plan as it stands, but to allow officers a little more time to produce a plan which we can all get behind for the benefit of every one of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand up is Councillor Richard Dolinsky, if you'd like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be really brief. As a member of the Equality Cross...
Councillor Dolinsky, you're breaking up and the screen is freezing intermittently.
Right. Is that better now?
Momentarily, yes. We'll see how it goes on.
Okay, all right. As a member of the Equality Cross-Party Steering Group, I too want to thank the officers and my colleagues for producing a plan in what has been an impossible tight deadline. Unfortunately, I feel that the plan is unfinished work, and I believe it's short on accessibility, and I doubt that some will understand it or indeed the intent. However, the action plan goes some way to address...
You're frozen again.
That there will be genuine community engagement, but with a note of caution. If the council fails to deliver on the plan, you will hear from me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. A fragmented message, unfortunately, the intermittent silent gap, but I think we got the gist of it. And the next one on the list is Councillor Andy Croy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to perhaps to reiterate some of the other points. I mean, the plan has clearly been rushed. It's clearly not finished, and it's clearly been initiated in response to the awful reputational damage that Wokingham Borough suffered last spring over the period of Black Lives Matter activities and protests. And it makes me think that perhaps we're not all on the same side. That one of the drivers, which isn't mentioned in the plan, is actually the desperate attempt by the Conservatives and this group to appear as though they're on the safe side. And I just don't see that. By their other actions, they will be judged, not by a plan which they've pressurised officers into rushing to a rather premature conclusion. So we will not be supporting this plan.
Thank you, Councillor Croy. Now, the next hand on the list here cannot speak because it is, in fact, a guest. It's Paul, somebody, the person who asked the question earlier. Members of the public are not allowed to ask questions, so could you please take your hand down? And the next person with a hand up is John Kaiser.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've heard here about not complete. We've also heard about council speak. Well, we are a council. I mean, this will always be work in progress. This isn't something you can sit down as a committee and come up with. I mean, you should never stop. You should always be vigilant. But I would say one thing, which is very important. Every journey starts with one step, and the first step is always the most important one. And I think it beholds all of us on the council, in part, to learn, to educate ourselves where necessary. This is something that we all need to do. It is not something that can be put in a bit of paper. It's not a committee. It's something far greater than that. And that's all I've really got to say on this.
Thank you, Councillor Kaiser. And the next hand that I can see here is Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubey. Imogen, would you like to speak now?
Sure. Good evening. I'm afraid to say that I believe the purpose of this report is just to fulfil the Council's legal requirements to produce a plan every 4 years on how it meets its public sector equality duties. It is a noble intention, perhaps, but if the last 4 years are anything to go by, it will soon be shoved into a dark corner and forgotten about until the next time it needs to be updated. We, the Lib Dem group, do feel that the protected characteristics under the law are not enough. They do nothing to protect people who were born in different countries, people with different social or scientific beliefs, such as climate change or nuclear disarmament. It does not guarantee any support for people who are from low-income backgrounds, nor does it support sign language and other users language users. And there are many things that really should be on this. While this report has involved a lot of good work in a very short space of time, it clearly has been rushed, as others have said, and that is why it does not go anywhere near far enough. I do agree, however, it is a start, but it certainly shows that there's greater diversity within Wokingham Borough community than what we had in the 2011 census, and I hope that this will be reflected in the more recent census that has just been taken place. We know that 34% of our school-age children have an ethnic minority background. So for the sake of our future, we certainly do need to ensure that this council properly honours and respects and celebrates our difference in our community going forward. The report has the note, our ambition is to ensure that no one is left behind and that unfair discriminatory barriers are removed. But it provides very little practical way of doing this in practical terms. Where are the funding? Where are the projects? These are things that other people have said earlier on. Essentially, the plan is lacklustre and has not been given any real power within this council. What we need to do going forward is regular meetings with officers and with real power to change how this organised operates from within. We need to ensure that there's a proper complaints process for tackling public inequalities related issues and an internal escalation points. We also need an ongoing plans for each directorate on how they're going to improve their areas in terms of equality, which will very likely mean changing some of the current working practices. Why is it that the marginalised disabled people and their access to services continues to be a point of concern within Wokingham Borough? The lack of investment in simple things as accessible bus stops in the centre of Wokingham, while there's been an obvious investment in the shopping area, is a glaring omission. The simple requirement for a dedicated and accessible bus stop for Redibus and Keep Mobile in Wokingham Town is also just unforgivable. In another area, all parks and playgrounds need to be accessible and have equipment for all children, while also being suitable for their mobility impaired carers. Practical things like replacing wood chippings or sand surfaces would be a big help. All of our buildings, homes, and particularly the new properties being built, must be better than just the current standard. Building to the standards have not been good enough for people with accessibility problems for a long time. So why are we building homes, particularly blocks of flats?
Could you come to a prompt close, please, Simpson?
Sure, okay. One of the positive things to come out of this process was the cross-party members of Equality Steering Group that helped put it together. I feel like we were making some progress with that, and I would very much like to see a commitment from this council to continuing this. We need to ensure that we have better engagement and progress.
Yes,
go back to the councillors.
I have to cut you off. Thank you. Yes. Right. Does anyone else wish to speak?
And you wouldn't let me finish?
Right. Well, I still have to look down. Right. No one else wishes to speak. We're going to invite Councillor John Halsall to have the right of reply at this point, please, and then we'll go to the vote.
I think equality is one of those issues which will go forever and ever, and all we can do is strive to eliminate inequality. But that's what we should do.
All right. Good. Thank you for that.
We should work very hard in every aspect, and I would, as the executive member who's responsible for it, I think we have a long way to go. But as my colleague said, this is one of the first steps, and it's one of the hardest, and we need to build on that. So please vote for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. So we now go to the vote, and we're doing the same hands up vote again. So can you make sure that all your hands are down? The hand just gone up already. Can you make sure they're all down to start with, please? and then we're going to do the for, against, and so on. So this is for the equalities plan as specified in the agenda. If you want to vote for that, can you please raise your hands now? Okay, can you take the hands down now, please? All of them down? There's a lot of them still up. Can you take them all down? They're going down gradually. All of them down. We haven't taken the vote yet, just we need every hand down before we start. Still a couple of hands up. Right, I can't see any hands now. Right, so we are going to have the vote. We are going to have the vote for. So if you are in favour of and you want to vote.
No.
Sorry.
Against.
Yes, having done for, I think ought to do against. That seems a good idea. Yes, exactly the same idea. If you are against this, I hadn't marked my bit of paper as it went through. Yes, I've had my attention drawn to the fact that because a couple of people were putting their hands up on previous votes and things, the public, of course, do not vote on this. It is members only. So if there are any non-members sitting here with the facility, please do not vote in these at all. It is members only. And since the members have voted, we've done the for. We are now doing the against. If you are against the equality plan, please put your hands up now. Okay, put your hands down if they were up.
Mr. Mayor, we've still got guests putting their hands up.
Oh, we did say they're not supposed to vote, please.
Keith Kerr just put his hand up and then put it down again. And Kieran's got his hand up.
Right. Guests are not entitled to vote in council elections. So could you please take your hands down if you have them up? I'm scrolling up and down this list. Yes, Keith Carr has his hand in the air. Oh, it's gone down now.
Might I suggest if guests can't behave that we remove them from the meeting and let them watch it on YouTube?
Oh, his hand's up again.
But might I suggest
I think we'll just ignore it. Won't count it. That's all.
Councillors and non-councillors.
Okay, it's obviously confusing when people are trying to count hands quickly, but we will just ignore them if they're not named members. So now I think we've just done the against. We should do the abstains now then. So if you wish to abstain on this particular vote for the equality plan, please put your hand up now.
Just remove them, Mr. Mayor.
We've got some hands up on abstains. Okay, could you put your hands down, please? And I can tell you that the arrangements are agreed. They're accepted. Okay, thank you. So now move on to item, where are we? 106, which is the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report 2020-2021. Again, we have 30 minutes for this. I understand that Councillor Kaiser, you are going to be proposing this. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Right, and do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do.
And who is the seconder?
Daniel Sargent.
Thank you. So, Councillor Kaiser, then, if you would like to speak, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak now.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I've been trying to save companies with poor finances for most of my working life, and you quickly get the feeling as to the state of these companies, and you can also almost smell the problems. I've been in my role at the council for the last 2 years, and I can tell you the council's finances have that sweet smell of success. with financial reserves detailed in last year's accounts of around 350 million. 12 million was to support the General Reserve Fund, the General Revenue Fund, and over 100 million in usable funds, which can be released in times of trouble to support education, town centre regeneration, RE3, and all the council's other projects, both major and minor. There is nothing I can think of which could knock this council off course. If you don't believe me, look at the year-end forecast for this year. It's forecast we will be on budget or thereabouts, with a forecast indicating a shortfall of £9,000 on a budget spend this year of nearly 148 million. Yes, I will repeat that, a shortfall of only £9,000. The mathematicians here might want to work that out, but there's lots of noughts after the decimal point. And all this during a major pandemic, probably the worst financial crisis since the Second World War. Coupled with this, with borrowings of 324 million, which reduced to 83 million when you take into account cash balances held by the council. A new town centre which pays its own way at no cost to the residents, and realisable assets of £496 million. Affordable housing companies which makes money, solid commercial assets making money for the general fund, in addition to the housing revenue account making a healthy surplus. I think even the most financial illiterate could say we are not a council in crisis. In fact, I believe quite the opposite. Again, if you don't believe me, look at what the Chartered Institute of Public Finance Accountancy's last ratings, and you will see we're in the top 20 of the most sustainable upper tier councils in the UK. You would expect me to be biased, but don't take my word for it. Seek it out on the council's websites. Look at the accounts. Read this year's CFO's report. It's there in black and white. We are, however, the lowest grant funded council in the UK, but year on year we've saved £30 million since 2012, 4.6 million of which was saved last year, and we have not cut or reduced services. In fact, in a lot of cases, we have increased them. Ernest Young last year, their comment, in our opinion, the financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of Wokingham Borough Council as of the 31st of March 2019. And I'm very much hoping they will say the same this year. It is with this background I make these recommendations as they appear in the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report for you tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kaiser. Councillor Sargent, do you wish to, as the seconder, do you wish to speak now or to reserve your right to speak later?
Can I speak now, please, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, certainly. Please start.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to second this report to the Council tonight. The report is further demonstration of the excellent financial management this council has had. As a council, we've stuck to the prudential indicators and optimised financing costs and revenues to deliver a net benefit to the taxpayer, a £7.20 surplus per Band D property to be precise. During the COVID crisis we're living through, this is more important to Woking Borough residents than ever. A fantastic job done by all involved. I also welcome the clarification in the report from officers on the constitutional point of order raised by the Liberals at the last council meeting, although I do really have to question why this was ever necessary. It is a clarification of what appears to me to be the very same constitutional points that was provided to those very same members at the Audit Committee on the 3rd of February. The minutes of this meeting demonstrating this are very clear. And as a relatively new member of this council, and not yet totally cynical about these things, I still can't help but wonder if this is a tactic to avoid talking about the excellent substance of this report. That said, I think the right thing to do tonight is to celebrate the continued success of this council on behalf of all of its residents. That's what's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Well, now, does anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Yes, I would like to speak as Councillor Burgess.
Councillor Burgess, yes, your hand's first on the list. Please speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of points on this, somewhat less celebratory than Councillor Sargent's. First, I just wanted to reiterate that the definition of the net cost of borrowing presented in these reports keeps changing. There is no consistency. So this report has reverted back to the figure of £7.52 per household that was presented to Audit Committee in November. But even this represented a completely new presentation of this data, a change to previous reporting to Audit Committee and Council from the year before, with the resulting cost of borrowing figure looking more favourable. The £7.52 figure is the net cost of borrowing once it's been reduced by netting off other income, such as Treasury investment income. However, if this figure is calculated on a consistent basis with the mid-year reports for the previous year, a consistent like-for-like figure would be £108 per household. We have a situation here where the presentation of figures is changing year on year and even meeting by meeting. If this was a proper KPI relating to debt and investments, it would have been agreed at the outset and then measured on a consistent basis over time. However, what we have instead is the Conservatives picking and choosing figures to suit their position in reports and in covering papers, and continually changing the numbers in order to counter political arguments. The second point I would like to question is on recommendation 3, which asks us to note that the Council's Chief Financial Officer is able to appraise the Council of any supplementary information. I find it quite bizarre that this has been added to the recommendations for a mid-year Treasury Management Report. It seems to be an attempt to excuse the fact that in our last meeting in the covering paper, the presentation of this cost of borrowing was changed between Audit Committee and Council to present a more favourable view. Remember that the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report is a historical report, looking back over historical figures for the first 6 months of the year. Therefore, there should be no need to make additional statements and changes to the presentation of numbers between Audit Committee and Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. The next hand in the air is Councillor Maria G, please.
Thank you. I welcome the inclusion in this evening's report of only one Treasury Management mid-year report, rather than the 2 reports presented at the previous meeting. I'm very pleased to see that the Treasury Management Report presented to the Audit Committee in November has correctly been the only one included this time, albeit that the covering report contains updated information that has not proceeded through Audit Committee, which is unfortunate. And I agree with Councillor Burgess's observations on that. For residents and this council, it is important to gauge trends in performance that information presented each year in reports is consistent with prior years where possible and desirable. Redefinition of measures and changing formats of reports makes the job of gauging trends in performance difficult, sometimes impossible. When it's not possible to be consistent, or because changes are desirable, it is essential and best practice that prior year's data is restated to allow for comparability. There should be an explanation about the effects of the changes year on year for transparency. That way, the council and residents are well informed and can make judgments about performance. The Treasury mid-year report presented to Audit Committee in November last year and here this evening contains much additional information for which no comparable data for previous years is presented, and that makes the reporting less than transparent. I look forward to reports that are either consistent or comparable in future when presented to Council or its committees, so that we have a sound basis for judging year on year the trends in performance. Transparency is what residents and councillors need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G. Does anyone else wish to speak at this point?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got my hand up.
Yes. Okay, Councillor Halsall, would you like to speak?
I've been using numbers to manage a huge number of enterprises throughout my life, and they've not been just artificial academic positions, but they've been used for making decisions. I'm absolutely stunned that my colleagues, who also call themselves chartered accountants, wish to disagree with Ernst & Young and CIPFA in terms of presentation. The presentation is as determined. The results are superb. Our financial management is second to none. Our financial officers are very difficult to fault. It is very difficult for me to understand why the LIMDEBs continue to say that our current borrowings are greater than the authorised limit, in contradiction to both officers and Ernst & Young. It is just simply untrue. Our borrowings, as this report says, are at 83 million, not the 750 million, which is splayed all over the borough by the opposition. it is important to tell the truth. Numbers are determined, their presentation of numbers are determined by the authorities, and they're audited. So,
point of personal explanation here.
you can explain what you like.
So are the numbers in the Treasury mid-year reports audited?
They're datumed off the year end, Maria, as you know. And I'm not sure that we're supposed to be having a discussion.
Is the Treasury mid-year
Malcolm,
report?
sorry.
Is it audited? Is it audited? The Treasury mid-year report by Ernst & Young, is it audited?
I would find it very, very surprising if they don't review it.
Is it audited?
I would be very surprised if they don't review it.
Is it audited?
Yes, sorry. Can we avoid this?
Can I
two-way
suggest?
barracking?
No, takes it up with the chief financial officer.
Personal
Because we're not
explanation
going to
either,
resolve
is it?
that here tonight.
If it's audited, say it's audited. If it's not, say it's not.
Sorry, Councillor
Mayor,
Dean,
can I
that's
just
not the
ask you,
point of
please?
Personal explanation. Personal explanation is for something that you said yourself earlier on, basically. Let's see the agenda. It's not a point for open debate back and forth. That's a different sort of thing altogether.
Is it allowed for the leader of the council to infer that the Treasury Management mid-year report is audited?
I will have to.
Come on, Malcolm.
He thinks that truth is important. So do I.
I'm going to have to mute you, I'm afraid.
Mr. Mayor, I also have a point of personal explanation.
Yes, yes, please continue.
And it is a personal one. Thank you. I would like Councillor Halsall to take back his patronising remark that I call myself a chartered accountant. I am a chartered accountant. You can check with the ICAEW if you'd like, but I'd like him to withdraw that patronising remark. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, could Councillor Halsall, I don't know if you heard that particular request, but could you actually continue with the statement you were giving before you were rudely interrupted? Would you like to carry on?
I've finished. I'm very happy to accept both my colleagues are chartered accountants, but I'm not very happy to accept their interpretation of the figures, which is far from the truth.
Okay, thank you. Right, so at this point then, we now would go back to Councillor Kaiser to have a right of reply before we go to the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I don't offer any apologies for it, but I am not a chartered accountant. I am a mere member of the council. I am led by what I am told by the financial officers of this council, and I believe they are led by what they are told by CIPFA and Ernst Young, who are their auditors. I only ask for the officers. The only thing I ask for the officers is clarity. Clarity and transparency. That's the most important thing to me. So tonight I recommend these. I would like to recommend these recommendations as they appear in the mid-year Treasury report. And anybody who's got any problem with it, I would suggest they take it up with the Chief Financial Officer. And if they're not happy with that, speak to our auditors. I am not in a position to make a judgment because I am not a chartered accountant. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've had your right to reply. We now intended to go to the vote on the recommendation in the agenda. So we're using the hands up feature again. Go around this loop. Can you please make sure all your hands are down? It looks like it from what I can see. And we are going to ask, first of all, for the fours. Those who are in favour of and want to vote for this agenda item, can you please put your hands up now? Right, could you all put your hands down now, please? And we go to the second part of the vote, which is all those which are. Is hand still up? It seems. A spare one or two. No, there's still one up. Yes, I think they're down now. So we now go, as I said, to the against votes. If you are against this item, would you like to put up your hands now, please? Excuse the cough. Okay, could you all put your hands down now? I'm hoping they're all down. I can't see any on the screen. Right, so now we are going to go for the abstentions. If you wish to abstain on this particular part of the vote, would you like to put your hands up now, please? And I can tell you that the recommendations are agreed. Thank you for that, councillors. We move on to agenda item.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a statement about points of personal explanation? If you will allow me
yes,
to.
Okay.
Very
yes,
quickly.
Certainly.
We've had 2 points of personal explanation, which, according to standing orders, are not points of personal explanation. Reference 4.2.13.14. A member may make a personal explanation at any time. A personal explanation may only relate to some material part of an earlier speech by the member, which may appear to have been misunderstood in the present debate. The 2 points of personal explanation that we've had were clearly did not obey that rule. Thank you.
Thank you for drawing that to our attention. Thank you. I think I did say that it wasn't
they did, because in the previous speech he was talking about he was referring to the 2 chartered accountants not being chartered accountants.
But it wasn't you made the statement. A personal explanation is to clarify something that you spoke, not what somebody else said. Okay, so we then move on to agenda item 107, which is headed Officer Response to the Recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, can I also just clarify at the end of the previous item of business, you said that the recommendation had been passed, and this is a noting. That's all. There's no passing of anything.
I think I said agree, didn't I? Sorry. You're muted, Andy. I can't hear you muted. Okay. Sorry. I think I used the right word. If I didn't, I apologise. But it got through. It is agreed. It passed. So I've got all 3 words in. Agenda item 107, which is a fairly long description. Officer responds to the recommendations from the overview and scrutiny report. WBC's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a breath. We have 30 minutes for this as well. I believe this is to be proposed by Councillor Charles Margetts. Is that correct, Councillor Margetts?
No, it's being proposed by me, Pauline Hellier-Simons.
Oh, okay.
Is going to be seconding it.
Charles Margetts is going to second it. Okay, thank you for that. Two points made in one. So in that case, Councillor Hellier-Simons, would you like to speak now for up to 3 minutes on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last night, I listened to the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and at it I heard that Wokingham Borough Council has been told that its response to COVID was one of the best and fastest compared to most other councils in the country. This information was passed on by Nick Durman of the Health Watch Wokingham Borough, and I'm very pleased that he said that, because it does support what we found at the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. A huge amount of work went into preparing this report from officers, from the 3 other scrutiny committees and the main Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee, plus the NHS, Citizens Advice and many other outside organisations. I was particularly pleased that the management committee was given the results of the residents' survey, and the residents also were very complimentary of what we've been doing. Between us all, we covered a huge range of areas: distribution of grants, support of food distribution, poverty, sometimes being experienced for the first time by people, telephone calls to isolated people, mental health. The details are all in the report, but it was exceedingly wide-ranging. But I would like to give credit to many, many volunteers and community organisations who've genuinely stepped up to the plate in a very big way in the support that they too have given. I'm really pleased that there was genuine cross-party contribution to and agreement with our report. And the officers were in agreement with our findings and recommendations as well. We found that the response by our council was very good, and the executive have endorsed the report. But we can't let up. I know that we are continuing to work in this way, and that we are also aware of the 3 things that the resident survey identified as the most important for the future. And those 3 things are support for local business, mental health, and addressing loneliness. The Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee will continue to monitor progress regularly. I propose the acceptance of this report.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Hildesheim. Caroline Smith, could you please turn your video off? It's dominating the screen and you're not speaking. Thank you. Councillor Margetts, do you wish to speak now or to reserve your right to speak later?
Happy to speak now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then please do so.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's now just over a year since the COVID-19 pandemic arrived in Wokingham. In this time, there have been around 8,000 cases and around 300 deaths in Wokingham. However, the impact of COVID goes far beyond these statistics. 3 lockdowns, months of school closures, retail and hospitality businesses closed for months and their futures compromised, shielding, delays to all routine medical procedures. The consequences of COVID have been difficult for the whole borough. However, in the face of this challenge, the Wokingham community came together as never before to face the situation. The report that's before you was written in July last year. It does accurately detail the full response to lockdown and the tremendous work done, but the work still goes on today, and we're going to be living with the threat of COVID for some time, although the future, thanks to the vaccination programme, does look considerably better than it did last July. I thought it was opportune to just update you on where we got to so far. These figures are current, some of them are still increasing. But at the moment, 19,000 welfare calls carried out by WBC staff to those who've been shielding the clinically vulnerable and carers. I wanted to draw your attention to the work of the Wokingham Volunteer Centre. They recruited 63 volunteers during the pandemic who carried out 917 prescription runs. They've recruited 504 volunteers to support the COVID vaccination clinics. And of those, 220 have also helped at our lateral flow testing centres. The Community Food Hub, which was run by the First Aid Children's Charity and staff from Wokingham Sport and Leisure. They delivered during lockdown 5,000 food parcels to 900 households. The Citizens Advice Bureau in Wokingham and WBC library staff set up the One Front Door service. Since March 2020, it has answered 10,500 phone calls and provided a single point of contact for everyone in need. The Link Visiting Scheme, with redeployed WBC library staff, recruited over 600 volunteers for its community response and has made over 20,000 befriending calls. And approximately 250 befriending partnerships were set up. The Friendship Alliance, who supported the coordination of 11 local groups covering the entire borough, who provided support to the shielded and the vulnerable in their communities, who also help with shopping and prescriptions. These are the main charity groups who've been involved, and their work continues to this day. However, none of this would have been possible without the hundreds of people who gave up their time to help their community when it was most in need. We're very grateful to them and for everything they've done and for everything they will need to do in the future. But I'd like to thank the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for this report. Sessions I attended with the officers were well balanced, well judged, basically, and you had some really penetrating questions. And yes, that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Margetts. Does anyone else wish to speak on this? You put your hand up if you do, please. Yes, the first hand I can see here is Councillor Sarah Kerr. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Next Tuesday marks the anniversary of the day the UK entered its first national lockdown as a result of COVID-19. The response from the community, from council officers and from so many organisations has been phenomenal. No amount of planning can prepare you for what we have and continue to face, and the partnership between the council, its partners, the voluntary sector and the community in providing emergency support is something everyone can be proud of. The scrutiny process provides an opportunity to take stock and really consider the direction this local authority takes and how it engages with its customers, the local community. The local authority is in existence for one reason and one reason only: to serve the local community, and that community needs to be at the heart of every decision and action it takes. As such, I'm disappointed in the response to some of the recommendations made. I'm pleased that we finally have the issue of poverty on the agenda, although it shouldn't have taken the pandemic to do so. My frustration is that the response is more virtue signalling than meaningful action. The narrative that continues to come out of the council focuses on the fact that we're one of the least deprived upper tier authorities in the country. What this narrative doesn't tell you is that we're benchmarking against a country that has a poverty epidemic, and it provides little comfort to those who are living in poverty, let alone acknowledge the fact that the affluence of the area pushes up the prices of basic goods and services compared to areas that are less affluent. The danger of this kind of narrative is that it's meant for years and years the issue hasn't been taken seriously enough because it's deemed that we're doing okay. Now's the time to use this affluence to make a difference. Recommendation 7 clearly states the anti-poverty strategy is to be co-produced, yet this isn't happening. Consulting isn't the same as co-production, and the merit of the latter is that the strategy would be jointly owned and implemented with frontline partner organisations who know what they're doing, where the voice of those in need will genuinely be heard. This local authority has to get out of the habit of thinking it can do stuff to people and move to a position of doing stuff with people. And we've seen that it can do it when it wants to, as evidenced by the co-produced SEND strategy in children's services. I'm also deeply frustrated that council tax exemption for care leavers up until the age of 25 was not implemented for the remainder of this financial year. We have heard at our corporate parenting board meetings that the budget allocation for council tax exemption for care leavers up until the age of 21 had more than enough left over to cover those care leavers up to the age of 25. These are some of the most vulnerable young people in our care. This council has the opportunity to change and ensure that the community it serves is at the heart of all decision making. I'm yet to be convinced that this is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Next hand in the air is Councillor Andy Croy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Sarah as well for those remarks, almost all of which I agree. I won't duplicate what Sarah has said. I would just like to point out what didn't make the scrutiny report. In the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee, we made a specific recommendation that the borough's officers work with specifically poverty fighting charities. Now, that recommendation never made it to the final report because it was voted down by the Tories on the committee. There is a limit to what scrutiny can achieve when the ruling party is able to pack the committees with people who will vote, frankly, on party lines. Charles mentioned a couple of the charities, these that really stepped up during the pandemic, including the Woking Food Bank, for example, which wasn't mentioned, I don't think. And our recommendation that the officers work with these charities, and what was turned down, and so the officers never even got a chance to consider that. It's also worth noting that the officer response on the issue of poverty was it didn't contain the word agreed. Let's put it that way. Where we had asked for these unhelpful benchmarks to be excluded from future discourse on poverty, that was the thing which officers didn't commit to doing. And so on a couple of levels, this report is disappointing. And let's be clear, it's not a history of what happened in the borough in the pandemic. It is one point of view, and there are other points of view as well. And I think a rounder history will be far more interesting and far less flattering than this one. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. The next one, I think, seems to be Councillor John Kaiser speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm somewhat speechless by this, because being accused of being shamed into doing things and weaponising poverty, which seems to be happening here. I mean, when this occurred, I was the very first person, in conjunction with the leader of our party and with the full support of the Conservatives behind me, with the CAB, the Two Saints, getting all the homeless, the rough sleepers off the street. And when I was told we might need some money to help with the vaccination, track and trace, and also the testing, I mean, we found another £1.2 million in our budget. We had a supplementary budget. Now, it may suit people's agenda to accuse us of doing this because we were shamed into it. I can assure you, from my background, and I don't intend to go into it, I don't need to be shamed into anything. And I would say that a little bit more cooperation from some of the people tonight who have been talking about cooperation would have gone a long way during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaiser. And the next and last hand here is Councillor Jim Fruin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think once we get away from some of the recent comments, the main point of this report is something that the council should be applauded for. The fact that cross-party working, officers showing flexibility, working with our partners in the community and making decisions that were perhaps not politically welcomed elsewhere outside of Wokingham. I think everyone involved in this should be applauded, because there is no doubt that some of the decisions made saved lives, and I can only thank everyone involved for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment, Councillor Fruin. Right, next one is Councillor Pauline Jorgensen, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've heard some astonishing things tonight, but I would just like to thank Councillor Fruin for actually saying, I think, what most people think, which is the officers and the members went to extraordinary lengths to help people during this pandemic, and will continue to do so as long as we need to. So I would like particularly to thank Jim for his speech just now.
Thank you. Are there any other hands wanting to speak? No? So in that case, we go to the right of reply, and that is Councillor Pauline Hellier-Simons, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to say a great deal in addition, but I would just like to clarify something that Councillor Croy said. The reason why it was not accepted, that what he said about poverty, was quite simply because the council was already developing a poverty strategy which took all of those things into account. And as Councillor Kaiser has just said very lucidly, there's a whole list of things that we were doing to help people who were facing poverty, perhaps for the very first time in their lives. And my only other remark is to say that all of our work on COVID has been done with people, not to them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So we can now go to the vote again. Back to the hands. Can you make sure all your hands are down, please? If any of them are up, please make sure they're down. And the first part of the vote, of course, will be those who are for. If you are in favour of these recommendations and you are for, please put your hands in the air now.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, nothing seems to be working on my computer, but I'm for. I'm sorry, my hand's not working.
Sorry, which councillor name for the sake of the...
Councillor Hobbs here.
Okay, Angela Hobbs. Okay, thank you. Can you all put your hands down now? Thank you. The second part of the vote then is for those who are against. If you're against this report, hands are still up. A couple of them are still up. Can't be up and down. There's one. Oh, it's just gone down. Right. Okay, so we're now going to do the against. If you wish to vote against this report, would you please put your hands in the air now? Okay, please put your hands down. And we are now going to have the third part, which is the abstentions. If you wish to abstain in this vote, please put your hands in the air now.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Talking to myself again. Yes, the recommendations are noted. Thank you for that, councillors. And the next item is...
Mr. Mayor.
What, being muted? Talking to myself, you mean? Agenda item 108, which is the annual report from the Overview and Scrutiny Committees. And this is a 30-minute report as well. I have a note that says that Councillor Pauline Hellyer-Simons, I believe, is proposing this. Is that the case, Councillor?
Yes, indeed. And
yes.
Alison Swaddle is seconding it.
Okay, so Pauline Hellyer-Simons proposing, Alison Swaddle seconding it. Thank you. Would you now like to speak for your time up to 3 minutes, please?
Yes, quite shortly, because it is a very detailed document in the papers anyway. But in proposing these reports, I would like to add my personal thanks to the members and the chairman and the vice chairman of all of the 4 committees and the officers that have supported them for all their time and their thought and incredibly hard work throughout the year. The work's been done with genuine curiosity and commitment to cover a huge range of important topics and make sure that we are doing the very best that we can as a council for our residents. So I would like formally to present the report.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor. I've got a bell ringing now and then. I don't know what it is. Yes, Councillor Alison Swaddle, as seconder, do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Reserved right to speak. Okay. So does anyone else wish to speak now? Please put your hand up if you do. No. Oh, can't see any hand.
Councillor Croy here.
Oh, right. Okay. Councillor Croy, would you like to speak then? Yes, I've just found your hand. Would you like to speak?
Thank you. Very, very quickly. I just lean too forward. I'd just like to sort of perhaps re-emphasise one of the things which Pauline said, and that's the incredible hard work of the officers of democratic services that go into all of these meetings. I think the main point I'd like to make for members is that the purpose of scrutiny is not to receive rather interesting reports on topics that are fascinating or interesting to us and to help us while away the evenings. But the purpose of scrutiny is to try and help shape. I'm glad you're laughing, Malcolm. I'm not accusing you for 1 second of being like that, but clearly I've touched a nerve there. So the purpose of scrutiny, the purpose of scrutiny is to try and shape and improve the way the council operates. And I'm not sure that all of our committees are working in that way all of the time. And it certainly doesn't help, I don't think, where we have a constitution which says that the party with the largest group in the chamber will also be the largest group on committee in the committees, because we have a rather bizarre situation where every single chair and every single vice chair of every single scrutiny committee scrutinising a Conservative executive is also a Conservative. So there must clearly be doubts as to the ability of scrutiny to perform its function where people are in the same party, and where sometimes that voting does appear to just fold along party lines. Now thankfully, in the two task and finish groups that I have had the privilege to be a part of in my 5 years now as a councillor, that party line thing doesn't seem to be as strong, and they remain a very effective way, I think, of hopefully influencing policy. But I am concerned about how effective our member involvement is with scrutiny. Not the officers, they're fantastic, but we must do better in terms of how our scrutiny committees influence the council's ongoing work programme.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Croy. Excuse me. Let's see if there's any other hands up. Does anyone else wish to speak? No. Just waiting for some. Right, Councillor Swaddle, I think you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to echo the comments that Councillor Hellier-Simons meant and thank all the committee members and the officers. Indeed, the purpose of overview and scrutiny is to add value, and I think we all strive to do that very much, and certainly not on a political basis. Every member of overview and scrutiny has training, and we are there to ensure that the council is meeting the needs of every resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swaddle. And so we return to Councillor Hellier-Simons. If you'd now like to have your right of reply, please.
No. Oh, can you hear me? No,
I can hear you. I can't see you.
I want to. Sorry, my mute didn't react very quickly. No, I've said all I want to. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, we go on to the exciting vote process again. So if you can all make sure your hands are down. Can't see any hands on display, but you usually need a second opinion. Right, so we are going to vote, and the first stage will be those who are for. So those people who wish to vote in favour of this report, please put your hands up now.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Hobbs here. I'm for. I'm sorry, I can't put my hand up.
Okay, same as before then. Okay, thank you for telling us. Okay, can you all put your hands down now, please? Still a few hands up. Can you put the hands down? And I think they're all down. No, they're not all down yet. It's taking some time to get them all down, it seems. Final request, hands down now, please. Thank you. So we're now going to go, yes, this is the against, isn't it? So would you, if you wish to vote against this, can you please put your hands in the air now? Okay, so move on. So the next bit then is, if your hands were down to start with, to abstain. If you wish to abstain, please put your hands in the air now. The report is duly noted. Thank you. So we move on to the next item, which is agenda item 109, Standards Committee Annual Report. And I think this is going to be proposed by Councillor Kaiser, John Kaiser, is that correct?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
And do you have a seconder?
Do I require to? Yes, I do. Yes.
Yes.
Abdul Lois.
Abdul Lois. Okay. Thank you. So, Councillor Kaiser, if you're going to propose, Abdul Lois is going to second it. Could you do your speech now, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm reporting this as the Vice Chairman of the Standards Committee. The Standards Committee met 4 times during the year and focused on ensuring that ensuring that the Borough Council's policies as set out in the Members' Code of Conduct were up to date, understood and underpinned by best practices. During 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in the introduction of virtual meetings and a much greater online activity for members. Bearing in mind the significant challenges facing the borough, town and parish councils over the year, I'm pleased to report the level of Code of Conduct complaint activity in 2020-21 remains at a relatively low level compared with previous years. I would just like also to point out in the report that at the committee meeting on the 11th of January 2021, a question was raised with regards to the meeting, the composition of the meeting of the committee. As a result of the point raised, the meeting was adjourned to allow the matter to be reviewed. A review was undertaken, which included obtaining legal advice on the issue, and the Chief Executive summarised the position in a letter to all members. It was acknowledged that the appointments did depart from the council's locally agreed rules. However, the appointments had been made by full council and therefore the committee members had been properly appointed. It was determined that the committee composition and any decisions made by that committee were not unconstitutional or unlawful. However, immediate action had already been taken following the meeting on the 11th, in which 2 members stepped down from their membership of the committee with immediate effect and were subsequently replaced by 2 new members as detailed above. In addition to the report, I wish to add to the report a letter, the letter which was sent to all members from the Chief Executive of the Council and as an addendum to the report, and I would like, as requested by Councillor Croy, and I would like that voted on as well. One last point, final point, I would like to put it on record to thank the Borough, Town and Parish Council members, the officers and independent persons who contributed to the work of the committee during the year, and that also includes all the members of the Borough Council. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor,
yes. Thank you, Councillor Kaiser. Councillor Abdul Lloyd, do you wish to, as seconder, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll reserve my right to speak later.
You reserve your right to speak later?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So does anyone else wish to speak on this then?
I have my hand up.
I've got Prue Bray's hand in the air.
Thank you.
And Andy Croy after.
Right, we feel that this report sanitises the fact that the Standards Committee was wrongly constituted for 20 months. The Council has been told that legally there are no issues and we have been presented with an arguable case for that position, even if, in our view, it's not one which would or should win the argument. But there's certainly no arguable case that it is acceptable morally. I think it is a great pity that the Conservatives have chosen to hide behind what is, in my opinion, a rather flimsy legal shield instead of acknowledging that something very wrong has happened. I don't understand what it is that Councillor Kaiser has just tried to add to us, approving this evening some report which hasn't been shown to us, and I don't believe you can just add a thing in like that without it being shown to councillors. I have no idea what he's talking about. In any case,
matter of clarification, Mayor.
Yes.
It is.
Yes, what is clarification?
It is not report. It's a letter. It is the letter that you refer to from the chief executive that I wish to add to the report. And you've all seen the letter. You've all read the letter because you've actually spoken about the letter, saying you feel it was a flimsy shield. That's your opinion. So you have admitted you've seen the letter, and I've been asked by Councillor Croy if I would add it to the document, to the report, so it is clear for everybody to see.
In which case, I believe you should have made a proposal for an amendment to the recommendation in a formal manner.
That is what I was told.
It's only symbolic, but we will be registering the fact that we don't think this is good enough by voting against noting this report.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Andy Croy seems to be next. Councillor Croy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as John said, it is just the letter that the chief executive sent to us all in January. We have got a proposal, an amendment to the recommendation. We can do it if we want to go through that. I think, to me, the most important thing is that detailed explanation is attached to the summary which is presented in the report. The bigger issue around this is that what comes out of that legal opinion is that basically whenever council wants to vote on something, council can just override the constitution, and what that effectively means is whatever's written in the constitution doesn't actually count because any sitting of council can override it. So I do think we need a way of making sure that council cannot just, with a majority of one, rewrite the constitution anytime it wants, or inadvertently rewrites the constitution every time it makes a mistake. So I would like to ask, perhaps coming out of this, if the Constitutional Review Working Group will look at putting something into the Constitution which says that the Constitution can only be rewritten if that is stated as an explicit aim as part of a motion or resolution, or if there is a certain threshold applied. And I think in many organisations, one needs, say, a 2/3 majority of members present in order to override the constitution. So I would like the Constitutional Review Working Group to look at that. Unfortunately, we can't bring that to the Constitutional Review Working Group because we're not on the Constitutional Review Working Group. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask the next chair of the CRWG to have a look at this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Croy. And the next hand on my screen is Councillor Halsall. Councillor Halsall, would you like to speak?
When you get elected to be leader, you have to make a huge amount of appointments in a very, very quick time. And the arcane intrigues of the scrutiny committees and audit committees and the executive are quite complex. I have to apologise that, again, as I've already apologised, that I made a mistake in the appointments. It was not a mistake which was knowingly made. It was a mistake which was an honest mistake, and we corrected it as soon as that was pointed out. The consequences of the mistake were reviewed and extensively to see whether there would be any consequences, and there weren't. The business going through would not have changed. So I'd like to reiterate my apology to council. It was a mistake. I have made mistakes in my life, and I'm sure I will continue to make mistakes in my life. And I would like to ask the council's indulgence. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. On that point, since Councillor Croy made a recommendation which was actually an amendment in effect, can I ask if Councillor Halsall, you will accept? I think it probably needs to be put on the screen. Assuming it is, can I ask you whether you would accept, Councillor? Sorry,
Mr. Mayor, it's not for me. I'm not proposing or seconding.
Oh, sorry, John Kaiser. In that case, sorry. Oh, Andy, will hold on. I've got 3 names. I'm just getting them in the right order. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, point of clarification again.
Yes.
I've already agreed that the letter from the Chief Executive will be part of the report. So I'm asking for the report to be voted on with the letter which is attached from the Chief Executive. So there is no point to have any changes.
Yes, it's just that I was advised that it could be considered an amendment and it was worth checking whether that was the case.
It is an amendment, but if he accepts it, we don't need to vote on it. But you need to probably do the right process.
Okay, can I ask Councillor Croy if he accepts that proposal as well? Both of you accept it, is what I'm saying.
I would like to propose it, and I hope John can accept it, and then we can agree on the final recommendation.
Good, that's fine, thank you. If no one else, oh, I've got Clive Jones here who wishes to speak as well now. Thank you, Clive Jones.
Sorry, Malcolm, that's a mistake that my hand's gone up.
Oh, okay, your hand's gone down again?
Yeah.
All right, so in that case, if there are no other hands up, I come to Councillor Loyes to ask if he now wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr.
Having reserved it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm delighted to say that what both Jones has clearly explained what has happened on 11th of January. And also I'd like to say to all the members who participated for last 12 months, all are elected member elected by full council, including Prue as well, and the officers they put their time on, and this was all observed by our legal officers. So everyone, thank you so much for your time, and I would like the report to be recommended to the full council. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, we go to the voting process again with the hands in the air.
Mr. Mayor, do I not get an opportunity?
Oh, sorry, you do have a right to reply. I missed you out, didn't intend to. Right to reply, Councillor Kaiser.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have been on this committee for the last 12 months, and I believe that what it's done has been fair and honest. I believe all members that have been on it have acted correctly, even though it was wrongly constituted, and I'm somewhat disappointed that it can't be supported by members who served on it, because it casts a shadow over the things that we've done over the last 12 months. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Well, before we go to the vote, I will say, in fact, that I shall be voting because I can abstain or vote on these. I think the significance of this is very important, and I shall be voting on the revised recommendations. Okay, so we go to the vote then. If all hands are down, we will ask for those who are in favour and will be voting for this this item to please put their hands in the air now.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Hobbs here. I have found my hand. It is up, but I don't know if it's showing.
Okay. Well, we'll put you down, presumably as a 4 then, which that is what you're saying, I think. Okay, all hands down then, please. We're now going to go to the against vote. So assuming all hands are down to start with, if you wish to vote against this, please put your hands in the air now. I'm advised
there are still some other.
Yeah. Be nice to have a hands down global control, wouldn't it? So we start afresh then. We're on this against. Are all hands down? Or do we assume now that all the hands that are up are against? I'll just check. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Some all the ones that Rob are against. So just being counted. Can you please take them all down? All hands down. And the third and final part of this vote is those who wish to. There's still some in the air. Can you take them down, please? Okay, I'm advised they're all down. So we do the third part then. Those who wish to abstain, please put your hands in the air now. And I'm advised that recommendations are agreed. Thank you, members. Now go on to the next section, which is 110. Agenda item 110, reports from members appointed to outside bodies. And I understand that Councillor Halsall, you are proposing this, is that correct?
I am.
Okay.
And I shall do so very quickly.
And do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do. It's John Kaiser.
Right, thank you. So we'd like to speak now then, please.
Very quickly.
That's all.
Democracy, transparency, diversity, equality and anti-racism and addressing need must be the heart of everything we do. I thank, this is very annotated, I thank all my fellow councillors as we go into elections. Some will retire voluntarily and some not so voluntarily. I wish to thank them all for the good work you do. I know that pretty much everyone
John,
works.
John, this is the wrong speech.
No, it's not the wrong speech because
Sure.
it's reflecting all the hard work everybody does, Andy, including you. Quote, some may belittle politics, but we know where it is, where people stand tall. And although it has its very harsh contentions, it is still an arena which sets heart beating fast. It may be sometimes be a place of low skullduggery, but is more a place of noble. I wish everyone, friend or foe, well. May I propose, with your leave, that we note the reports from members of outside bodies as circulated in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall.
That was a very good version.
Very quick and very effective. Yes,
Right.
Councillor John Kaiser, as the seconder, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
No, Mr. Mayor, I speak now, get it over with.
Okay.
I just reiterate what basically what John said. Members from all colours give up all political colours give up their time, attend these meetings, and that's why I'm so concerned when I hear members wanting to step away from a meeting that they've served so diligently on. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Halsall, you probably won't, but you at least say 2 words. Would you like to have a right of reply? Just a moment.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, are we not allowed to speak on this? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, likewise, Shirley. Thank you, Shirley.
Andy Croy.
I'm looking for it on my screen at the moment. I've got 2 screens going. Bear with me. Yes, I've got Pauline Jorgensen here first, followed by Shirley Boyd, and then Andy Croy. Is that what do you think,
Yes.
right, Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if you can see me or not. Seems to be something very strange going on with this Teams. Can you see me?
I can't see any hands in there. All I've got is your initials on the screen, and I can't see any hands at the moment.
Well, I've stuck my camera and my microphone on, but anyway, never mind. I'll stick with the microphone. It was a very quick question of comment about Councillor Kerr's report on Keep Mobile. I note that she says that one of the comments is that they have not yet got a bus stop, which is concerning. I recall meeting Councillor Kerr almost a year ago, and at that point, with officers, agreed that Keep Mobile would come back and identify a site for that. So if they have come back and they haven't got a satisfactory reply, would you please get in touch with me and I will follow it up.
Okay, thank you. I'm just checking what the next person.
I think you said me, Malcolm. Shirley Boyd.
And the cat.
See, I keep getting muted one way or another. Shirley Boyd, you are supposed to be speaking now.
Yeah,
apologise for that delay.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a quick point, actually. On the reports from members appointed to outside bodies, there seems to be a report missing, and that is the one, the report from the representative to the Wokingham Waterside Centre. That doesn't seem to be included in the list. I don't know if that's an oversight. So I just thought I'd like to point that out, that the list is incomplete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next person is. Hello?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, can I cite standing order 4.2.12M and ask to continue the meeting beyond 10:30 p.m. in accordance with Rule 428? It's Councillor Bray here.
Have a seconder?
Councillor Conway.
Yes, I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we need to go to the vote then on that. Can you stick all the hands down, please? And then we'll have a vote of those in favour of extending the meeting by 30 minutes. So if you want to vote in favour of extending the meeting, can you please put your hands in the air now?
Shame.
Can you put all your hands down now, please? All hands down as rapidly as possible. And now we will. Right, they finally all down. Now we'll do the against. Those who do not wish to extend tonight's meeting by an extra 30 minutes.
Very disappointing.
Right.
Certainly are.
Take all the hands down now, and all those who wish to abstain, please. Yes, the meeting will not be extended and will conclude at 10:30. Thank you, members. At that time, I think Shirley Boyd was speaking. Did you finish, Councillor Boyd?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted it noted that that report was missing from the list.
Okay. Well, the next one, I think, then from my note, is Andy Croy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd just like to thank the leader of the council for his most generous comments about the members of all colours contributing to the outside bodies. Unfortunately, this is not the case, is it? And we had considered that we might amend this report to call it the reports from Conservatives who are appointed to outside bodies, because with one exemption, I mean, everybody on the list is a Conservative. And I appreciate Lindsay Ferris might not be everyone's idea of a Conservative, but he certainly is mine. But that's by the by. What I'd like to draw members' attentions to is one of the problems we have is because these appointments are decided on a block vote, we end up in a situation where very, very well-qualified people who should be appointed to these outside bodies are not appointed. In the case this evening, Shirley has already pointed out that we have a member appointed to the Woking and Waterside Centre who does not represent that ward. Our candidate for that position does represent that ward. For the 5th year in a row that I've been a councillor, I think we have 2 members appointed to the Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative who do not represent Woodley Town Centre as part of their wards. Now, I'm very pleased to report to Council that both Shirley and I have managed to find our way into those organisations to try and offer our services as best we can. But we really do need to look at a way where the election of members to outside bodies stops being a party political job shuffling exercises, because if we don't, there's a chance it will carry on, it will switch from being Conservatives appointed to outside bodies to Liberal Democrats appointed to outside bodies, or perhaps it will just stay as Conservatives. Either way, we need to be appointing members to outside bodies who are best placed to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next person on my list is Guy Grandison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, just a quick comment on mine from the Redibus report. I apologise for it being slightly late. I was clarifying some aspects of the report up until Monday to basically give it over to you. The summary of the report can be found in there, but Redibus would like to thank Woking Borough Council for the support they've given over the last 12 months, and in addition for basically the last 40 years in addition as that. I just want to apologise for the delay. Once again, it was due to a clarification I needed to make. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Granton. And so the next one there appears on my notes to be Councillor Keith Baker. Keith Baker, are you there?
I am, but I did not have my hand up to vote, but I would like to correct an incorrect statement that Councillor Croy actually said. Both the borough representatives on the Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative are actually councillors for Woodley. He suggested that they weren't. Councillor Cheng is a councillor for Southlake, and Councillor Soane is a. Excuse me, I'm still talking. Councillor Soane is chairman.
Sorry, can you not cross speak?
Their wards,
one at a time, please.
Their wards do not include the town centre, and it's a town centre management initiative, not a broader Woodley management initiative.
That's, yeah, I won't say anymore.
Okay, so after Keith Baker, then it's Rochelle Shepherd-Dubé, please.
I would like to explain that I am not a Tory or Conservative or anything like that, and I'm on the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service Committee. So I'm on an outside body. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next one on my list here is Bill Soane. Councillor Bill Soane, please.
Yes. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to come back on the point that Councillor Croy made. I am not a ward councillor for the town centre of Woodley, but I have spent the last 28 years heavily involved in everything that goes on within Woodley, including the town centre, and I feel I am well placed to be on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Soane. And the next one appears to be Councillor Jim Fruin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to support the core of what Councillor Croy said, and that we should look at a process of allocating people to roles that are best suited to support what we want to do for residents, not just purely based on party politics.
Right. Now it's Michael Firminger, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really coming back on Councillor Croy's point. I'm actually a member for the Sonning and District Welfare and Educational Trust. I'm a member of that particular outside body because I'm a member for Sonning. It's got nothing to do with party political background whatsoever. It is purely to do with my ward, and that's why I'm on it. Just want that point of clarification. It's somewhat misleading what he said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish? What have I got? Next one. No, that's the last.
Mr. Mayor, a point of personal clarification again. The point I was making was that ward members should have a reasonable expectation they're involved in outside bodies that are related to their wards. Clearly, if whoever it was spoke last is representing us on a body which is associated with his board, then that is not applicable in his case. But there are many other cases where that does not happen. He's literally just reinforced my point.
For a point of clarification, Councillor Croy, that was me, Councillor Firminger. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now, Councillor Halsall, would you like to have a right of reply now, please? And then we go to the vote.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it isn't I. It isn't I.
Well, yes, I thought he was meant to be JK, but I.
Are we still on the outside bodies?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
We've got JH and JK down here, and I think it should be you. Yes, so it is you.
So it's me, is it?
Yes, it is.
No, I have nothing to add, sir. Thank
okay. That's a positive nothing to add. Okay, so we can go to the vote in that case. Can you all put your hands down then, please? And if they're all down, we'll go for the 4 to start with. All of those who are for this agenda item, can you please put your hands in the air now? Okay, counted them. So can you all put them down, please? Put your hands down as quickly as possible. And now, on the assumption that they're all down, we're going to vote for the. Still not down. Can you make sure they're all down, please?
Mayor, I should have voted in favour. My hand's stuck.
Okay, so Councillor Halsall will be voted in favour. Okay, so if they're all down then, we're now going to vote those who wish to vote against. Please put your hand in the air now. Okay, and finally, assuming they're all starting in the down position, if you wish to abstain on this item, please put your hand in the air now. The reports are noted. Thank you. So we now move on to item 111, agenda item 111, which is the member question time, for which we have 30 minutes, and supplementaries are allowed. Well, it would be 30 minutes if we had that much time left, but we can ask then. Councillor Pauline Hellyer-Simons, would you like to ask your question of Councillor Parry-Barr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bath, please can you tell me what the borough is doing for cyclists and what progress has there been on the Greenways programme?
Pauline, thank you for your question. The council is doing a significant amount of work to ensure that cyclists are catered for within the borough, and there are a wide range of services, cycle routes, clubs and organisations in the borough that are available to help residents access cycling as a mode of transport and a fun way to exercise. The council's award-winning My Journey continues to promote active and sustainable travel, as well as provide training for children and adults to help people ride more confidently and safely. The ongoing Greenways program, once completed, will provide a network of traffic-free, multi-user greenway routes connecting the strategic development localities of Arborfield, Shinfield, North and South Wokingham. Route I, running through California Country Park, has already been completed, and we are now focusing on the delivery of Route B, which links Wokingham to Arborfield. The first section of Route B running through Cantley Park is currently under construction and due for completion by the end of April 2021.
Thank you, Councillor. Second question is Councillor Paul Fishwick to ask the question.
Mr. Mayor, I have a supplementary.
Oh, sorry, supplementary. Sorry, I forgot. Racing ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Bath, can you tell me what progress there's been in putting a cycle route through Gorick Woods to link up with Byway 28 that Wokingham Without Parish Council has surfaced, and thus linking Wokingham Without cyclists and walkers right through to Wokingham Town?
Certainly, Pauline. Wokingham Borough Council is working with Wokingham Without Parish Council to continue the surfacing work along Byway 28 through Gorick Woods. This will provide a much improved surface for walkers and cyclists. The works are planned to be completed in early summer of this year.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good. Now I will ask what I asked a bit too early. Councillor Paul Fishwick, would you like to ask your question of Councillor Wayne Smith, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to Bearwood Park planning applications. On the 1st of April 2015, Wokingham Borough Council gave the developer Reading Football Club planning approval with conditions attached to create a training ground at Bearwood Park. Conditions included several areas around the environment and biodiversity, including Condition 28, which prohibits works or removal of trees, shrubs or hedges without the written consent, and in any work is required, they should be replaced. The approved plans demonstrate that all the trees around Bearwood Lake, including on the dam, are to be retained and are covered by a tree preservation order. On the 8th of December 2020, the developer submitted another application for various works on the TPO trees. The application was devoid of any detail on why any single tree needed to be felled and went against all the previous conditions relating to the environment, biodiversity, climate change and air quality. So why did this council allow a developer to destroy between 400 and 500 protected trees without question, the majority of which were mature and included at least 9 veteran trees listed by the Wokingham District Veteran Tree Association? Thank you.
Yes, in fact, I believe because it's all about that, it should be answered by Councillor Parry Barr rather than Councillor Wayne Smith.
I take it that's okay with you, Paul. You're looking.
That is absolutely fine, Parry.
Looking very smart, if I may say so.
Thank you very much.
Paul, thank you for the question. The felling of trees at this location was carried out by the landowner, as you rightly say, as part of the essential safety work to the dam required under Reservoirs Act 1975. The council were notified of these works via 5-day notification as they're required to do so under Regulation 14.2 of the tree regulations. A 14 to 5-day notification gives a landowner the ability to carry out works in order to comply with a statutory obligation or to carry out urgent safety works. And this was the case in particular because there was health and safety issues there, without needing consent from the local planning authority. And it is an urgent notification which the council cannot determine. Hands are tied, nor can we condition the terms on which it was made because it was purely a health and safety issue on the reservoir issue.
Okay. Do you have a supplementary?
I do. Thank you very much. I do disagree with quite a lot of the things you said there, but my supplementary is this council has allowed a developer to destroy an irreplaceable historic parkland of semi-mature, mature and veteran trees, some of which are up to 300 years old.
Yes, I agree, Paul.
That they were covered by a tree preservation order, yet it claims that it's tackling climate change, protecting the environment and wants to improve air quality and biodiversity. It has taken 150 years.
Is there a question in that supplementary? I haven't heard one yet.
There is, Mr. Mayor. I am just getting to it.
Okay.
It's taken 150 years from the creation of Bearwood Lake to where we were before the park was destroyed. We do not have 150 years. We have less than 30 years. Wokingham Borough Council has allowed this to happen. What is it going to do to replace it? And it is now requires an investigation by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Would you agree?
Paul, this was a health and safety issue. I've checked it all the way through, and we had to allow the permission to be given to the owner, and they took the decision to purely on health and safety grounds, and that's where we are at the moment. And certainly I can discuss it with you outside of this meeting by all means on a one-to-one basis and involve the relevant officers as well. To be quite honest, I do sympathise with what you say, but we had to allow it on health and safety grounds, and we did so.
Okay, thank.
Okay, the March report of 2015 by Black and Vetch.
I need to go on. You can't have an additional supplementary, I'm afraid. So I need to get on. The third person here is Councillor Rachel Bishop Firth, please, to ask your question of Councillor Charles Margetts.
Thank you very much. The number of people in the UK living with dementia is forecast to nearly double during the next 20 years. I'm therefore pleased to see that the Council is proposing to build a new care home specialising in the provision of care for people with dementia within Embrook Ward. While we have a number of questions about the site, in particular about safe access, in principle an increase in care provision has to be welcomed. Can you please confirm that this care home is an addition to Suffolk Lodge and not a replacement?
Thank you for your question. As you said, basically it is true that the number of older people with dementia is expected to increase. We've identified a need for further affordable provision locally to support the needs of the community. Suffolk Lodge currently provides residential care for 36 older people living with dementia who need the support of a secure environment and a higher level of care from staff. Suffolk Lodge is run by Optalis and was rated as good in its most recent inspection. While Suffolk Lodge has served the community well since the 1980s, the building itself does not provide the level of facilities to meet the projected need of the community. This includes sufficient provision of nursing care. Subject to planning permission, it is anticipated the proposed care home will be delivered in late 2023. We envisage that the home will provide Woking with the additional capacity to meet both the existing need and the future need for residential and nursing dementia care. The proposed care home will provide 68 beds and will be designed to meet the care needs of older people, specifically with dementia. The delivery of the new care home will result in the closure of Suffolk Lodge, with residents being accommodated within the new care home within Embrook. We'll obviously work, and they're in the process of working with residents, families, colleagues at Suffolk Lodge to ensure that the best interests of all parties are represented.
Thank you. Do you have a quick supplementary at all, Rachel?
Yes, I do. The closure of a dementia care home is a difficult and sensitive issue, as moving these vulnerable older people out of their home can be a frightening and distressing experience for them. Wokingham's team of adult social care officers is caring and proactive, and we can be certain that they will do their best to care for these patients and their families. When the old Foster's Care Home in Woodley was closed a few years ago, I know this was a deeply worrying time for residents, families and staff who were affected. Many did not want the closure to go ahead, and residents were moved to private care homes, which must have been at a considerable cost per patient, and the concerns reached BBC News. What has the council learned from that experience which could make the transition easier when Suffolk Lodge is closed?
Thank you.
I wasn't obviously in post when Foster's was closed, so it's quite hard for me to comment off the bat basically about that particular situation. But I'm happy to come back to you with a further written answer based off that. What I would say is already discussions have taken place basically with staff, with residents and with families to make this move as smooth as possible. And we're very aware basically of the need to do that properly. Hence the fact that whilst this is still in its very, very early stages, basically we've already, and you know, as I said to you, late 2023, subject to planning, subject to business case, there's a lot of things that could change that. Yeah, we're already engaging with people to make sure this is as smooth as possible. But what I would also say is the new, whilst I fully understand and appreciate it will be disruptive for people, this new investment in this much improved home basically will be a big step forward for the quality of life and the quality of experience for these people basically when it opens. But I do have your comments and your concern, and that's taken on board, and I will come back to you on the Foster's point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marget. And this looks like the last question coming up. Councillor Tahir Maher, to ask your question of Councillor Jorgensen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for all you've done this year. It's a shame that we couldn't meet you more in the council
in the flesh, so to speak.
Yeah, in the flesh.
Yes. Thank you.
To save time, can I ask the question in my name, if that's okay?
Okay, so Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor. The resurfacing plan that you talk about, there isn't an early resurfacing programme. There's, of course, a borough resurfacing programme. The selection of roads to be included in the annual planned structural maintenance programme are based upon the UK Pavement Management System, which is the UK PMS, which includes annual network surveys and our own internal design process, including site visits to check condition survey scores and, where required, core sampling to establish the scale of intervention recommended. We also actually do slip and skid resistance testing using a vehicle with wheels slightly off kilter on them to see where the major issues on roads are. This is recognised by central government and the wider industry through its code of practice as the national standard for well-maintained highways infrastructure. This approach ensures that the annual structural maintenance programme is based on meeting the needs of the highest priority roads on the WBC network within the funding available. Silverdale Road between Allendale Road and Sevenoaks Road currently shows a condition score of 306.57, which indicates medium priority, i.e. maintenance in the next 2 to 5 years, subject to any new condition surveys or updates in the future. In the meantime, the road will be regularly inspected and kept safe for public use. The council team works very hard on road repairs. If you report potholes and other issues online, they'll be dealt with, as you can see by the fact that we completed 1,882 repairs in the last year and 192 in February alone. Next year, because of our intervention in the budget, we will spend even more on resurfacing, 4.8 million indeed, and we'll resurface based on the pavement management condition surveys I mentioned. So if you have any dangerous potholes or anything you think requires reporting in the meantime, please do it on the website. And when Silverdale Road gets to the stage where it's at the top of the list, it will be done. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And
I do have a supplement. if I can.
I'm afraid we won't be able to get the supplement in. You know, you can't get the supplement and the answer in just a few seconds, unfortunately.
So here, if you want to email me, I'll give you a written answer, yeah?
Okay, thank you, Paulie.
That's a
I
good idea.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so because of the time now, this is the last council meeting of the year, and I'm calling it to a close at 10:30. Thank you all for your attendance, and the meeting is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
That's for you, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Well done, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Well done, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Mr. Mayor, well done.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Well done.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Got the name right.
Yeah, well done, Malcolm.
We'll miss you, Malcolm.
You can't mute at all.
We'll miss you, Malcolm.